I call the meeting of the Brockton City Council Finance Committee to order for Monday, October 18th, 2021. I recognize a quorum. Unfortunately, Councilor Nicastro is ill tonight, and she will not be able to join us. Madam Clerk, item number 1.
Appointment of Parita Das of 6 Ray Avenue, Brockton, Mass. 02301 to the Planning Board for a 5-year term ending October 2026. Invited, Parita Das.
Mr. Mayor, good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I am really excited to introduce Parita to you. She is an architect here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, a Brocktonian. We put out on social media a request for any residents in Brockton that may be interested in serving. She responded, and I didn't know Parita, but we had a wonderful Zoom conference the other day, and after I spoke to her, I proudly put it before you. So she's here tonight, and again, I would humbly ask for your support on this endeavor. Thank you.
Parita.
Hello, everyone. Hi. Thank you. First, I'd like to thank Finance Committee and Mr. Mayor for giving me this opportunity to serve my community with my expertise and knowledge. And Brockton is growing, and I look forward to being part of this growth story. Thank you.
Motion to recommend favorably.
Second.
On the motion,
On the motion, Councilor Thompson.
just 2 quick questions. Is this for a permanent position, or is this an alternate position? It didn't clarify, but do we know if this is the permanent? Okay. And then secondly, and first of all, welcome. And, thank you for stepping forward and serving our community. It is much, much appreciated. I do see that through your experience, you're eminently qualified for this position. But my question would come to, does the city see, and if your architectural firm came before the planning board on a specific topic, would the city see this as, would you have to recuse yourself in that situation? And do you see yourself recusing yourself if your employer came before the planning board to present a certain project in Brockton?
Yeah, I will follow the procedure what planning board have in that situation. I can recuse myself, from those meetings.
And Mr. Mayor, just quickly, just procedurally, is that the proper thing to do?
It is, Council. We spoke during our interview. I had asked her if her architecture firm had done work in Brockton as of yet, and the answer was not yet. But in the future, Parita had said if they ever did, she, of course, would do the right thing and recuse herself. And that's past practice as well.
Okay, so I just wanted to ask that question. I believe that's a proper thing to do in that situation. And again, Parita, thank you for your service to our city. It's much appreciated. No further questions, Mr. Chair.
Anything further on the motion? It was properly seconded, made and seconded to recommend favorably. All in favor? All opposed? It is a vote. Item number 2.
Thank you.
Appointment of Matthew Stanton of 160 Tribou Street, Brockton, Mass. 02301 to the War Memorial Board of Trustees for a 3-year term ending October 2024. Invited, Matthew Stanton.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Many of you know Mr. Stanton. Matter of fact, this body ratified him when I put his name forward relative to being the citizen for the Huntington School Roof Repair Committee. Mr. Stanton excelled in that endeavor. So what's before you tonight are a few openings on the War Memorial Board. We currently have 2 veteran members, Ryan Burke, who you ratified, Navy, and also Miles Jackson, who's been on from a previous mayor. He's also our other veteran. Before you tonight is 3 individuals. 2 are non-veterans, and then the last one is a veteran, Mr. Madden. But I just wanted to let you know that Mr. Stanton is always ready, willing, and able to serve our community, and I proudly put him before you tonight as a non-veteran member. Again, the makeup is a total of 5. It's 3 vets and 2 non-vets. Thank you.
Mr. Stanton. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for having me tonight. It's an honor to stand before you in seeking appointment to the War Memorial Board of Trustees. The War Memorial holds a deep place in my heart as a living monument to every citizen of Brockton who has served in our nation's armed forces. It would be my honor to serve on the Board of a building that serves as a daily reminder of the service and sacrifices so many Brocktonians have made for our country and our city. I drive by it quite often and really just want to pull over and look at it. And I think I can pretty much say the same thing the Enterprise did when the building was dedicated back in 1930. They described it as an imposing symbol of the deep love and undying devotion of a citizenry of Brockton for its soldiers, sailors, and Marines. Thank you.
Motion to recommend favorably.
Second.
Second. All right. Motion made and properly seconded to recommend favorably. All those in favor? All those opposed? It is a vote.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr.
Have a good night.
Stanton.
Thank you, Mr. Stan.
Item number 3.
Appointment of Sarah Units of 65 Longview Road, Brockton, Mass. 02301, to the War Memorial Board of Trustees for a 3-year term ending October 2024. Invited Sarah Units.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I proudly stand before you with the petition of Mrs. Units. Again, most recently working in Massasoit, her family is long vested public servants. She also saw the ad that we did on social media. She applied. I spoke to her. And what sealed the deal for me to put her before you is she said her picture of her grandfather is in the War Memorial. She cares about that building. She wants to bring a skill set that I think is long overdue. So I proudly have Sarah Eunice before you tonight. Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening, councilors. Thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight, and thank you for the mayor for the opportunity. He took some of my remarks. My grandfather has passed...
Get used to it.
I know, right? My grandfather is past commander of the American Legion. His portrait hangs in the hallway of the War Memorial Building. It is a treasure in this city, and I look forward to the opportunity to do more.
Motion to recommend favorably.
Second.
Motion made and properly seconded to recommend favorably. All those in favor? All those opposed? It is a vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Units.
Item number 4.
Appointment of Brian Madden of 15 Madrid Square, number 5, Brockton, Mass. 02301, to the War Memorial Board of Trustees for a 3-year term, ending October 2024. Invited Brian Madden.
Good evening again, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Brian Madden is here tonight. Again, he would be my recommendation as a veteran member that would, if he's ratified, would fill the capacity of 3 veterans and 1 non-veteran. Many of you know Brian throughout the city, so I know he's here tonight. Thank you.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for the appointment. Yes, I am a veteran, a proud veteran of the United States Navy. I served honorably, and it was definitely part of the best times of my life, serving this country, and I serve it honorably. My grandfather has a stone in front of the, a brick in front of the War Memorial Building, Walter Holland. And his son, my uncle, served in Vietnam. So, you know, serving this country is very important to my family. And serving on this board, as a trustee board, as a veteran, would be an honor. Thank you.
Councilor Azak.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Madden, for your service and for your, for serving on this committee. I think it's an honor to have you serve on the War Memorial Board of Trustees. I just have a really quick question before I make a motion to send this favorably back to the full city council. Mayor, with these appointments, will we have a full board, or are we still missing more appointments?
Yes, no, we will. We actually had 2 resignations recently. Mr. Richard Bath, who was a veteran member, moved out of the city. So Brian, if he's ratified by you, would fill that spot. And then David Silvestre was a non-veteran member who moved out of the city. And then either Mrs. Units or Mr. Stant would fill that. And then there's a non-veteran that had never been filled. So that would be full capacity of 5.
Full board?
Yes,
Thank you very
Councilor.
much. Thank you. I make a motion to recommend this favorably back to the full city council.
All right, there's been a motion made and properly seconded to recommend favorably to the full council. All those in favor? All those opposed? It is a vote.
Thank you, Mr. Madden.
Thank you, Mr. Madden.
Yes, Acting. Thank you.
Item number 5.
Ordered, in accordance with the general laws of Massachusetts, Chapter 44, recommending that the City Council authorize the acceptance of the donation in the amount of $3,000 from Brockton Assembly of God Church to Mayor's Office. Invited Honorable Mayor Sullivan, Troy Clarkson, Chief Financial Officer.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. What's before you tonight is a generous, potential generous donation to the city of Brockton. Pastor Steve Warner from the church actually came to see me recently, and he was very dismayed by the condition of the flags that fly, all the different national flags that fly out there. He wanted to make a gift so that we could acquire replacements of those. He actually said, if you can buy two, I'd be willing to do $3,000. So that's what's before you tonight. If it's ratified, the pastor through his church would donate the $3,000. We've already got price quotes to buy all those flags, plus some additional flags that the city doesn't currently own.
Motion recommend favorably.
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion made and properly seconded to recommend favorably. All those in favor? All those opposed? It is a vote.
Mr. Chairman?
Counselor Azak.
I would just like to make a public thank you to Brockton Assembly of God Church. I think this is a really generous of them, and really a great thing for the church to do. It's tough accepting money from a church, but we're grateful for it, so thank you.
You're welcome. Madam Clerk, item number 6.
Ordered. In accordance with the general laws of Massachusetts, Chapter 44, recommending that the City Council authorize the appropriation up to an amount of $34,590,793 from unappropriated estimated receipts, American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA, disbursement for purposes of COVID response, mitigation, and prevention activities. These funds are to be expended at the sole discretion of the mayor without a detrimental impact on the continuous provision of the existing level of municipal services. Invited Honorable Mayor Robert Sullivan, Troy Clarkson, Chief Financial Officer, Shannon Resnick, Legislative Counsel.
Good evening,
Mayor.
Mr. Chairman. What's before you tonight is the ARPA money, which is the federal money, American Rescue Plan. As you may recall, many months ago now, Congressman Stephen Lynch came here. The hard number is the total amount that we would get over the 2 years. The city of Brockton is already a recipient of the $17 million. It's already in our bank account, and the CFO can opine more on that. I also wanted to let you know that we have done as of this morning, it went live, and Davison Perez from my office is here, and I want to thank him, a citizen survey. So there are parameters, federal parameters on what ARPA money can be spent on. That's clear, that's what the federal mandates. But we are right now brainstorming to try to figure out if there's some citizens in the city of Brockton that might have some ideas that we haven't thought of yet. I would also encourage and ask all of you to opine on that as well, because we're all in this together. I will let you know that, and I want to thank Councilor Cardoza. We've had follow-ups with the anti-violence folks as well, because that does meet the standards. I actually talked to Pastor Manny Daphnis today from the YMCA. Father Bill's Mainspring, we've had a meeting. There are additional funds that Brockton be the recipient from the ARPA money. The Plymouth County Commissioners, and again, Treasurer O'Brien, are going to get their own pot of ARPA money to spread out throughout the county. And again, Brockton being the only city in Plymouth County, you know, the talk right now, and it's not hard, it's not etched in stone, could be an additional $4 million from our folks from the county relative to ARPA. And then again, and I want to recognize Superintendent Thomas and all the patronial, the ESSER 3 money, you hear about ESSER 3 money, that's ARPA money on the school side, and that's about $34 million as well. So I'm going to let the CFO give you some more updates. He's been working diligently with Legislative Counsel Shannon Resnick on this. So, and I'm here for answering any questions. Thank you.
Mr. Clarkson, before we get to you, I'd like to recap where I think we are, because we discussed this before. This originally came in as a Chapter 44, Section 53.5 acceptance, where a grant is received by the city and the council accepts the grant, and then the funds are expended. Ordinarily, the grant would be for a specific purpose and a much reduced amount from what we have here. This is a very substantial amount. So am I correct that the administration, you and the mayor, still take the position that this is a grant that we have to accept, and upon, pardon me, upon acceptance, it can be expended?
Yes.
All right, then
I'm happy to elaborate.
Then I have a question for you. Some of us objected to not having an appropriation before us and just leaving it up to the discretion of the mayor. You've already put before us appropriations from ARPA to settle contracts. So either on the one hand, those of us who think there has to be an appropriation and an approval are right, or on the other hand, you had us appropriate funds from ARPA before we even accepted this. So where are we?
Excellent question. So I'll address that specific question first, Mr. Chairman, and then speak more broadly to the topic of ARPA funds generally and where we're at. When we ask you to fund the results of the collective bargaining process, we use monies from a variety of sources. And so what I believe that request, and some of them are on your agenda tonight, is moving money for accounting purposes. It's in an ARPA fund to then other areas where it can be used to fund those contracts, much like moving money from the stabilization fund or moving, as you do, transferring from time to time monies that are within a budgetary line to another line. So what I would submit to you is that those requests for the use of ARPA funds to fund the contracts are not further appropriating, but simply moving that money that exists in a fund to be able to fund those contracts, because that is indeed a legislative function. To the larger question, though, of the council's, the legislative body's role in the appropriation of these funds, my hope, and that question is continuing to be discussed with the city solicitor and legislative council and the mayor and myself, and we will continue those discussions with this body. But the plans that the mayor and I have for public discussion, for reporting to you, for engagement with the city council about what your funding priorities are, it's my hope that that legal question becomes academic because of the level of engagement and involvement that you, the council, and members of the public will have. As the mayor noted a few minutes ago, we have established a citizen survey that is already up on the city's website seeking input on funding priorities for this once-in-a-generation, perhaps once-in-a-lifetime federal funding. As the mayor mentioned, he has met with several nonprofits. My team is working with the mayor's office and the solicitor's office to actually put together a grant application, because there's been significant interest from the nonprofit sector to be able to access these funds. And so we will have an application up on the website soon where nonprofits can signify their interest and receive direct funding from the city for purposes related to the ARPA funding. And as I noted to you when we first received notice of this grant from the federal government, my plan is to report to you on a regular basis. Every finance committee, should you like, monthly, quarterly, on how these funds are being expended. We've created a meticulous reporting construct within my office of how these funds are expended and how they're accounted for within each project that's identified. So I think the process benefits by us having frequent and detailed discussions on the use of these funds, so that in addition to seeking the public's input and engaging with them on what they think the money should be spent on, we also have another level of public engagement so that the public is confident that the funds are being spent wisely.
Could I, and then I'll let councilors chime in here, but on the specific question, if you're taking the position that these monies should be treated like a grant, and under 44, 53 and a half, or 53 and a third, I always remember subsection E, that we have to approve acceptance of the grant, you wouldn't be able to transfer money from ARPA. You wouldn't be able to touch it.
But the position that I'm taking, Mr. Chairman, is not that, I think the question, the position that we're taking is that the monies are accepted and that no further appropriation is required by the legislative body.
But you've already done that, though. That's what I'm trying to get across to you. You have already placed before us, and we have approved ARPA funds to settle the fire department contract.
Right.
If you take the position that the council has to approve that funding as a grant, which we haven't done, then you wouldn't have been able to access those funds. On the other hand, if you take the position that some of us share, that it was unappropriated receipts available for appropriation by the mayor, which he has every right to do, then we acted appropriately. And councilors, frankly, and I had a brief conversation with legislative counsel, I'd like you to hear from her if you don't mind, because she was given some information today, and I think she's going to recommend that we call a timeout here and have her further research. I don't want to put words in her mouth, but if she would be willing to come forward, and then the members can do as they see fit, but I think it's important you hear from her.
Thank you. I did speak with Councilor Farrell at the beginning of this evening to advise that I just needed an additional amount of time to be able to research some of the information that was provided by the city solicitor and CFO today. What I did ask, I asked Mr. Clarkson to provide some examples of funding sources that the city accepts, but that are not subject to further appropriations. And he provided me some great examples, being Chapter 90, Chapter 70, BRA funds, federal grant funds, state 911 funds, and recent census funds. So I want to research really what types of funds those are and how I could provide an analysis for you to how that relates to ARPA money. One of the things that kind of concerned me about this, and I've not yet reached a decision on this, is the ARPA legislation is very long. It's hundreds of pages, and it actually does not reference ARPA as a grant at all in that entire legislation. And so when the law department and the CFO provided the statute reference, it provides that any acceptances of grants or awards are done without further appropriation. And so I just wanted to challenge whether or not the ARPA funds would reach that state statute analysis. And to get there, it's difficult to do because, as you know, we're in unprecedented times. Councilor Farwell is correct that this is a large pool of money that we don't really have an example to go back to and say the federal government gave Brockton $35 million 10 years ago. Let's see what the council did then. So this is just really a new area of law, and I think that these funding examples from the CFO are a great starting point for me to give more of an analysis so that I can come back before the city council and hopefully just be able to speak more confidently on whether or not I think that that state statute would or would not apply for the city council.
Councilor Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I mean, honestly, I don't see what the big deal is with, us establishing a revolving account. And we've got revolving accounts all over the place where funds that are actually, that come in, go into this fund, and then from those funds, we appropriate monies out of it. To me, it's, you're getting all this money from the federal government. It's coming in for a purpose to be spent by the city. So if we establish a revolving account or stabilization account, a second stabilization account, somewhere where we're basically depositing these funds, and then an order comes to this body on a regular basis as you need to draw from it, just like we were able to take some money from the stabilization to settle the contracts of the fire department, not too long ago. So what difference does it make if the second half of that money comes out of another sort of a stabilization or a revolving account that we put all these funds, whether it comes from the county, from the federal government, from the state, or whatever, just as a temporary savings account that we actually establish so we can draw from it. So I don't see what the big deal would be, especially, and I'm a member of the MMA, and other communities are not having this kind of a problem because they're putting it somewhere and they're just drawing from it as they normally draw from their bank account. And that's what I think we ought to look into and draw from it through this whole process, which to me, I don't think there's one person that's sitting up here that would actually kind of go against, a duly submitted appropriation from the mayor's office for some funds that we want to expand here in the city. But there's got to be a process because, Mayor Sullivan and I are, we've been colleagues for a long time and we get along greatly. But the thing that scares the daylights out of me is that line that says at the sole discretion of the mayor. I mean, let's say a few years from now, he's no longer the mayor and somebody else is in that office. They're going to come back and say, you gave this authority to a previous mayor, therefore I want that same authority. What grounds do you have to say, no, we can't do that? So I think that's one of the things that we need to do. If we are the holder of the purse for the city, I think we need to act like it. You know, again, not to be obstructionists, but just to be the decision maker in the final draw. And I don't think you'd have much of a pushback because, I mean, I sponsored this order, and the only issue I had with it is that the wording at the sole discretion. You know, I'm actually for the spending of the funds, and I think we have to start going in spending these funds, but I think we got to be cautious about it to make sure we do it the right way, that we don't come back and hurt the, you know, future council, future mayors in the process.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I'm happy to answer that question, because when I appear before you on a regular basis, I hope, based on my education and experience, that I have some answers for you. But I never have, nor will I ever submit to you that I have all the answers. And one of the things I try to do is be a good listener. Councilor Rodriguez and I worked very closely together when he was mayor and continue to do so. That option of a revolving fund is not one that I thought of, and it's an excellent suggestion, because the advantage that a revolving fund provides, and let me give you an example. You have the cable revolving fund where lots of money goes in from Comcast every year. There is discretionary spending for the mayor up to a certain amount that's determined by the legislative body. And then any spending on top of that needs to come to the council for an appropriation. So again, despite whatever legal conclusions we may reach, that may be, I think, an option that we strongly consider, because it clarifies and defines the roles of both the executive and the legislative and sets the rules, because we're going to be spending this money for the next few years. So that's not an option I had considered, but I think it's a good one. And what I would suggest is perhaps between this finance committee and the next, I assume based on the suggestions of legislative council, this discussion will be continued, that perhaps the chair and the mayor and I and Councilor Rodriguez and others have a discussion, and I just think that's a good suggestion.
It just as a point of information, however, a revolving fund has to be set up by ordinance, and that takes time. And I don't want us to lose the opportunity to expend funds that are needed while we wait for an ordinance. So.
Is that something
But
to be late
Mr.
filed?
Chairman, I think we've got time to set one up as quickly as we possibly can, because we know that time is of an essence in the sense. I think we can set one up. I think we've got an ordinance coming up
Next week.
next week, and if we late file something next week, or file something next week and act upon it.
We have to have a meeting the first week
It has
of
to be
November
advertised, though.
after the election.
I think it has to be advertised.
Yeah.
You still got time.
Mr.
still got
Clerk, do
time.
you,
Not
having heard the dialogue, do you have an opinion as to how either you or legislative council, if we have time in this legislative session to do an ordinance?
I'll double check, but we should have time because you would have the sessions of November. The ordinance committee will need to meet sometime in November, but you'll have 2 readings. And actually you'll have an extra meeting to get it done in December, so long as we get something filed for next Monday night, which I can start working on tomorrow.
Just a point, there could be an item that we have next week that could be postponed to a meeting. I don't think we're going to rush through when we start talking about these salaries that are coming before us, and that could be something that we may have to look at in another meeting. So we'll have plenty of time to set one up after the election anyways.
That's true,
Yeah,
yes.
I think we'll have plenty of time. We'll be able to work on it.
So what is the body's wish, to postpone to allow legislative council to further research?
Yeah,
Yes.
I believe within, a month? I'd make a motion that we postpone this to the second meeting in November.
Second.
There's been a motion made, and
Well, yeah, whatever that
that's right.
first meeting in November is.
For the first meeting first finance committee meeting in November. Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor? All opposed? It is a vote. Thank you very much, all. Thank you. Item number 7.
Ordered, in accordance with the general laws of Massachusetts, Chapter 44, recommending that the City Council authorize the appropriation of $332,421.50 from Stabilization Fund, $237,921.50, to Cemetery Department Personnel Services other than overtime, $18,200, Cemetery Department overtime, $1,806. DPW Highway Personnel Services other than overtime, $80,080. DPW Highway overtime, $5,686. DPW Maintenance Personal Services other than overtime, $7,280. DPW Maintenance overtime, $383. DPW Refuse Personal Services other than overtime, $29,120. DPW Refuse overtime, $2,170. Library Department Personal Services other than overtime, $7,280. Library Department overtime, $300. Parking Authority full-time salaries, $21,840. Parking Authority part-time salaries, $8,872.50. Parking Authority overtime, $477. Parks and Recreation Personal Services other than overtime, $32,760. Parks and Recreation overtime, $6,215. Public Property Personal Services other than overtime, $14,560. Public Property overtime, $892. And from ARPA Fund, $94,500. 2, Cemetery Department signing bonus, $7,500. DPW Highway signing bonus, $33,000. DPW Maintenance signing bonus, $3,000. DPW Refuse signing bonus, $12,000. Library signing bonus, $3,000. Parking Authority signing bonus, $16,500. Parks and Recreation signing bonus, $13,500. Public Property signing bonus, $6,000. For the purposes of funding the laborer's contract, this appropriation provides funding for 3 years, July 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2022, of a 3-year contract. Invited Troy Clarkson, Chief Financial Officer.
Mr. Clarkson, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the council. This is one of several contracts that are before you this evening for funding, as I noted in the email that I sent to you over the weekend outlining all items on this agenda. The memorandum of agreement between the city and the union was attached as part of your packet, which provides all of the details. For this specific contract, the funding is all prospective. There is no retroactive pay in this funding. And as I mentioned to you in the other contracts that we've settled, this was the result of a significant amount of work between the city and the union, and I think that this settlement is fair and fiscally responsible. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Councilors, any questions?
Motion to recommend favorably.
Second. Okay, there's been a motion made and properly seconded to recommend favorably. All those in favor? All those opposed? It is a vote. Item number 8.
Ordered in accordance with the general laws of Massachusetts, Chapter 44, recommending that the City Council authorize the appropriation of $236,862 from Stabilization Fund, $172,362, to Department of Public Works Water Enterprise, $101,920, Personal Services other than overtime, Department of Public Works Water Enterprise overtime, $9,825. Department of Public Works Sewer Enterprise Personal Services other than overtime, $54,600. Department of Public Works Sewer Enterprise overtime, $6,017. And from ARPA Fund, $64,500. To Department of Public Works Water Enterprise, $42,000. Signing bonus, Department of Public Works Sewer Enterprise signing bonus, $22,500. For purposes of funding the Public Employees Local Union 1162 Water and Sewer Contract. This appropriation provides funding for 3 years, July 1st, 2019, June 30th, 2022, of a 3-year contract. Invited Troy Clarkson, Chief Financial Officer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Reiterate what I said for the previous one. The details of this settlement and the MOA were provided in your packet, and I believe this is a fiscally responsible and sustainable agreement.
Any questions?
Motion to recommend favorably.
Second. Motion made and properly seconded to recommend favorably. All those in favor? All those opposed? It is a vote. Item number 9.
Ordered in accordance with the general laws of Massachusetts, Chapter 44, recommending that the City Council authorize the appropriation of $119,150.87 from Stabilization Fund to Board of Health Personal Services other than overtime, $51,688.06. Board of Health overtime, $1,315. Department of Public Works Engineering Division, Personal Services Other Than Overtime, $9,236.15. Department of Public Works Engineering Division overtime, $3,000. Department of Public Works Water Enterprise, Personnel Services Other Than Overtime, $18,701.07. Department of Planning and Economic Development, Personnel Services Other Than Overtime, $9,236.39. Department of Planning and Economic Development overtime, $34. Public Property Personal Services Other Than Overtime, $28,119.20. Public Property overtime, $521. For purposes of funding the Brockton Association of Engineers, Technicians, and Inspectors contract, this appropriation providing funding for 3 years, July 1st, 2019 to June 30th, 2022, of a 3-year contract. Invited, Troy Clarkson, Chief Financial Officer.
Please proceed.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Similar comments on this settlement. The details are in the MOA.
Mr. Claxon, I have a question for you. Some of us came from a meeting at the War Memorial where there were several different unions present, and that included public property employees. I know you can't divulge the inner workings of these sessions, but there was a great deal of consternation about disparity in wages and the fact that some people got as you explained last week, a COVID bonus and some people didn't. Were you part of the group that met with this group by any chance?
Yes.
All right, and again, without divulging anything privileged, did the group come to a mutual agreement without too much rancor, or was it a protracted, shall we say, exercise?
Actually, as of today, we have, I believe, settled all but one unit within the city. I was at the table for all of the discussions and found them to be productive, professional, and at most times amicable. And yes, there were several people at the table for the city and for each union, and there was a robust discussion.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Any questions? Councilor Rodriguez.
Mr. Chairman, and that's on that same note, is there a possibility that we can look into some of these COVID monies coming into the community to go back? And I mean, we had some folks in DPW and in the building itself that were basically frontline individuals as far as I'm concerned. They were here on a daily basis taking care of our streets, our pipes, and everything else. Is there any thought or conversations regarding some going back and providing some of these individuals with some sort of, additional compensation for, not contractual, some sort of a bonus or something like that that we can do for these individuals that were actually on the front line on a daily basis, protecting and helping us in the city as well?
I think the answer to that question, Councilor, is yes. And in many cases, I'm looking through some of the agreements that you approved tonight. In some cases, I'm looking at one of the contracts that you just approved, that you just funded, excuse me. And in there's a COVID-19 bonus that's payable. So yes, that was included in our discussions. As to the question of whether or not prospectively that can continue to be involved in our discussions, yes, as you know, these are 3-year agreements that expire next June 30th. And the unions and the city have committed to being back at the table soon, within weeks of now. And so very soon we'll be back at the table for successor 3-year agreements that will include a period that's covered by CARES and ARPA funds. So that is a possibility.
Okay, is there any way you could actually do some sort of a study within your department to figure out exactly what would it cost the city in terms of providing at least some of these frontline departments some sort of a COVID bonus or something like that? Could you study that?
We've done that work as part of the process that has just concluded, but are happy, and I'm sure we'll advise the mayor on an ongoing basis on the costs to continue to do that.
Also, if I'm allowed to proceed with another question here, I know several years ago we had done a study through the Collins Center. I think they came down and studied some step raises or step pay within the employee scales. I mean, I get these job descriptions or job postings on a regular basis. We're still paying people to work in this building or in city government. The starting rates are somewhere around $39,000. I mean, I don't want to, basically drag this too far in the sense, but we're still paying people starting wages at $39,000 a year when we have some of these union contracts that we settle on a regular basis. They get bonuses of $39,000, never mind the starting pay. Has there been any discussion or some sort of, some ways of looking at these step raises or some of these step programs that we actually exist to bring these numbers up to today's standards in the sense? Because I can't see $39,000 doing anything to a working family in this community. I mean, that's basically minimum wage that we're paying individuals to come in and work for city government. And I think the same thing applies to the school department, to be honest with you.
So almost all of the employees that work for the city are covered by either a union contract or their salary is determined by ordinance. And there is actually a proposed adjustment to the pay ordinance that covers a wide variety of employees, from poll workers to me, that is currently before the ordinance committee. And I have stood at this lectern many times over the last few years and said that what I believe two of the primary challenges in recruiting and retaining employees are salaries and residency. And so I give tremendous credit to the chair for filing some changes to begin to address those. But it's a continuous process. There was a study that was done that was just prior to my arrival that adjusted some of the classifications of the union salaries. But those always require additional work and constant updating, constant communications. I believe that the lines of communication between the administration, certainly my office and the mayor's office, and our organized labor unions is excellent. And so I believe we'll continue those discussions. And the law department frequently handles ones on a case-by-case basis where a department makes a compelling case for an adjustment. So that work is ongoing.
Because when you look at it, when your starting salary for a clerk's position is somewhere around $39,000. And these individuals don't benefit from the overtime that others do benefit from. So they're actually in that poverty level for quite some time. And I think we seriously need to look at something like that in terms of bringing it up to a living wage, in the sense where these individuals can make a living while working for the city and not have to wait 30, 40 years or so by the time they make something that's reasonable. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councilor Yaneri and then Councilor Cardozo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to make one point, and I'll even have the chairman correct me if I'm wrong, because he probably knows where I'm going to go with this. But when we do start talking about these type of things, which we have to be very, very careful about talking, to be truthful with you, the one thing you have to understand, and when everyone points about across the street works under different unions than what this building works under, which we, as a council, do not have any control over. That building is controlled by the school committee and controlled by the superintendent of schools and his or her, whoever the assistant is at that time. They're the ones that set the pattern to how those people get paid, and we need to remember that. I don't like to see it mixed in, never had liked to see it mixed in, even when I was over there. And I just want all of you to be careful of that. And I think, and what Mr. Clarkson said, in regards to some of the things Councilor Rodriguez was mentioning, I think some of those other things from within this building, you're going to see are part of what we have to work on next week, which we'll be working on, probably could be into a further meeting. But we're going to get it done because it needs to be done. And yes, some of those people there need to see something different, because it's been 4 years since they have. Across the street, that headache belongs to the gentleman that's sitting in the second row. But in any case, I only say that when they doing what they have to do with their contracts, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of steam coming out those windows, because they're going to be looking at just what transpires here and what some of the other unions did as well, some of our high public safety unions, and you know that. So I just want to keep that separation so that we don't get mixed up, because it's two different entities, to be truthful. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. Counsel Cardozo.
Mr. Clarkson, I had the privilege of attending that meeting today, and there was nothing amicable about that meeting. People were really upset, really upset. So it sounds like there were two different meetings going on, according to what you just stated, because they're not happy. And during a meeting, Councilor Farrell suggested that, you know, not to put words in your mouth, Council President, that they shouldn't have settled, okay? So, but oftentimes, these folks will settle because if they're getting 50 cents, it's more than what they had a couple years ago. And they need to make this money, they need to pay their bills. But the disparities are huge. They're huge. And it's time that we did something about it. So I hope that there's further negotiations, because the workers are not happy. There was nothing amicable. When you're negotiating contracts, both sides should come out smiling, the city and the workers, at least in my opinion. And I didn't see that tonight. So I think it's very disappointing. We could do better. We've talked a lot about doing salary reviews and studies, and I think it's time that we did that, because it's posing a lot of problems with hiring and retaining people in this city. So we need to take it serious.
Counselor, thank you for that feedback. What I would say is that, again, I participated in that process, and when the city and a union reach an agreement, that agreement then goes back to the full membership of the union for ratification. And so the only way that an agreement comes before you for funding is if the membership has agreed that it's a fair settlement. So while I wasn't at the meeting, so I can't speak to the sentiments expressed by the members that attended, what I can express is my feedback based on the process in which I participated. And I do believe, based on what I saw and the words that I heard, that process was productive, and it compelled the leaders of those unions to go back to their membership and seek ratification. Can we do better? Of course, we can always do better, and we will continue. As I mentioned, we'll be back at the table in a very short amount of time for a successor agreement. But I have found here in this city the collective bargaining process to be collaborative.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
What else? Council Monahan.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And just hopping on the back, Councilor Rodriguez, also, as far as retaining our workers, I work all day in the city of Brockton with those workers in DPW, water and sewer, and their pay for skilled labor is $10, $15 an hour less than out in the private sector. So I really think we have to look into getting that a little farther up the scale for them, if possible. I know that it's the union and that you have a bargaining, but that skilled labor outside of the city pays a lot more. And if we want to keep these guys, and they're really, really good at their jobs, I think we have to see if there's any possible way to get that up the next contract, which we have to do 6 months down the road. But I think we have to, if you want to retain these guys, you're going to have to pay them, because it's wanted around the state right now in the different utilities. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And the office people, obviously, too.
Yes.
They're a great support system. Was there a motion to recommend favorably?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, there is now. All those in favor? All those opposed? It is a vote. Please.
Ordered, in accordance with the general laws of Massachusetts, Chapter 44, recommending that the City Council authorize the appropriation of $215,267.48 from Stabilization Fund to Assessor's Office Personal Services other than overtime, $7,279.96, Auditor's Office Personal Services other than overtime, $14,559.96, Auditor's Office Educational Incentive, $36.40, City Clerk's Office, Personal Services Other Than Overtime, $10,919.94. City Council's Office, Personal Services Other Than Overtime, $10,920.60. Council on Aging, Personal Services Other Than Overtime, $7,279.70. Council on Aging Educational Incentive, $36.40. Department of Planning and Economic Development, Personal Services Other Than Overtime, $3,639.85. Department of Planning and Economic Development, Educational Incentive, $36.40. DPW Administration, Personal Services Other Than Overtime, $3,639.91. DPW Administration Educational Incentive, $36.40. DPW Highway Division, Personal Services Other Than Overtime, $7,279.70. DPW Refuse Enterprise Personal Services Other Than Overtime, $3,640.02. DPW Sewer Enterprise Personal Services Other Than Overtime, $3,639.89. DPW Water Enterprise Personal Services Other Than Overtime, $18,200.09. DPW Water Enterprise Educational Incentive, $36.40. DPW Engineering Personal Services Other Than Overtime, $3,639.89. DPW Engineering Educational Incentive, $36.40. Elections Commission Personal Services Other Than Overtime, $10,919.70. Finance Department Personal Services Other Than Overtime, $3,640.02. Fire Department Personal Services Other Than Overtime, $10,920.24. Fire Department Educational Incentive, $36.40. Board of Health Personal Services Other Than Overtime, $3,640.02. Board of Health Educational Incentive, $36.40. Human Resource Department Personal Services Other Than Overtime, $10,919.49. Law Office Personal Services Other Than Overtime, $3,640.13. Law Office Educational Incentive, $36.40. Parks and Recreational Personal Services Other Than Overtime, $3,639.87. Parks and Recreation Educational Incentive, $36.40. Police Department Personal Services Other Than Overtime, $18,199.49. Police Department Educational Incentive, $36.40. Procurement Department Personal Services Other Than Overtime, $3,640.09. Procurement Department Educational Incentive, $36.40. Public Property Personal Services Other Than Overtime, $10,919.76. Tax Collector's Office Personal Services Other Than Overtime, $18,199.94. Tax Collector's Office Educational Incentive, $72.80. Treasurer's Office Personal Services Other Than Overtime, $18,199.74. Veterans Office Personal Services Other Than Overtime, $3,639.91. For purposes of funding the Brockton City Hall Administrative Services Association contract. This appropriation provides funding for 3 years, July 1st, 2019 to June 30th, 2022, of a 3-year contract. Invited Troy Clarkson, Chief Financial Officer.
Madam Clerk, would you make sure in item number 9 you note that Councilor Azak did not participate in that, please? Thank you. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As with the other contracts that have been before you tonight for funding, the MOA between the union and the city is attached.
Motion to recommend favorably.
Second.
All right, there's been a motion made and properly seconded to recommend favorably. All those in favor? All those opposed? It is a vote. Item number 11.
Ordered in accordance with the general laws of Massachusetts, Chapter 44, recommending that the City Council authorize the acceptance and expenditure of the grant award in the amount of $50,000 from Metropolitan Area Planning Council, MAPC, COVID Safe Cooling Strategies Grant to Emergency Management Agency, Metropolitan Area Planning Council, MAPC, COVID Safe Cooling Strategies Grant Fund. Invited Troy Clarkson, Chief Financial Officer, Stephen Hook, Director of Brockton Emergency Management.
Want to join us, Mr. Hook? Come on up.
Mr. Chairman, committee members, good evening. Hope everybody's well. So this is a $50,000 grant to provide COVID-safe cooling strategies, basically air conditioning and fans and some equipment for our cooling centers that we have in the summertime. We also have some funding in here for utility assistance. So that we've named this the Keep It Cool Brockton. You've probably seen it. There's an application process, and the Council on Aging has teamed up with us to distribute these items. So there's no match to this grant. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Motion to recommend favorably.
Second.
Motion made and properly seconded to recommend favorably. All those in favor? All those opposed? It is a vote.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 12.
Ordered in accordance with the general laws of Massachusetts, Chapter 44, recommending that the City Council authorize the acceptance and expenditure of the grant award in the amount of $50,000 from Massachusetts Board of Library Commissioners, MBLC, Library Services and Technology Act, LSTA, direct grant to Massachusetts Board of Library Commissioner, MBLC, Library Services and Technology Act, LSTA, Direct Grant Fund. Invited Troy Clarkson, Chief Financial Officer, Paul Engel, Library Director.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Engel.
So this is a $50,000 grant. Early on this year, the MBLC targeted 20 communities that were hardest hit by COVID. Brockton was one of them. Yay. And they wanted to give us money to do something for the community. Ideas that were posited were things we had already done before. Technology for hybrid meetings we took care of with CARES Act money. So we came up with an idea to, to purchase a mobile planetarium, one that we could do programs in the library and one that we could circulate out to our school systems, targeting elementary and middle school populations to entice them and get them interested in space travel and space exploration. And so that's what's before us.
Motion to recommend favorably.
Second.
Motion made and properly seconded to recommend favorably. All those in favor? All those opposed? It is a vote. Thank you very much, Mr. Engel.
Thank you.
Stay right there.
I will.
Item number 13.
Ordered in accordance with the general laws of Massachusetts, Chapter 44, recommending that the City Council authorize the acceptance and expenditure of the grant award in the amount of $15,000 from Massachusetts Board of Library Commissioners, MBLC, Library Services and Technology Act, LSTA, direct grant to Massachusetts Board of Library Commissioners, MBLC, Library Services and Technology Act, LSTA, direct grant fund. Invited Troy Clarkson, Chief Financial Officer, Paul Engel, Library Director.
Motion recommend favorably.
Second.
That's your extensive use of the library now.
I was there the other day. You behave yourself.
There's been a motion made and properly seconded to recommend favorably. All those in favor? All those opposed? It is a vote.
Thank you.
Councilors, item number 14, Solicitor Bridges asked that be postponed to the last agenda item. Would someone make that motion, please?
Motion
So
to.
moved. So withdrawn.
She has appeared. Strike my request.
We should make her wait anyway. Comedian.
Let's read 14.
Ordered that the City of Brockton does hereby take in fee in accordance with MGL Chapter 79 and other applicable law, the following described parcels of land, to wit, 596 Summer Street. For further reference, see Plymouth County Registry of Deeds, Book 54317, page 257, map 117, route 243, plot 44. We have considered the estimated damages sustained by all persons who have not waived damages in their several estates and hereby determine and award the same as follows. To be paid from the bond amounts previously authorized by the City Council for purchase of taking of property for public safety and general municipal purposes. Property owner, 596 Summer Street. Owner, 596 Summer Street Realty, LLC, $3,998,460. Said taking shall include all trees, soil, or fixtures thereon. Invited, Honorable Mayor Robert Sullivan, Michael Thomas, Superintendent of Brockton Public Schools or designee, Megan Bridges, City Solicitor, Troy Clarkson, Chief Financial Officer.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm excited to be here tonight on this matter. Very similar to matters that were before you recently on Highland Street. When a municipality acquires a property, even if it's a friendly, negotiating good faith, it's considered a taking. So the May Institute on Summer Street is a property that Superintendent Thomas, Alder Petroni, myself, Mike, Dr. Cobbs, your colleague from Ward 4, Councilor Castro, visited. We've been working on this for about 9 months. We all made a pledge that after we did the $98 million bond authorization for the new public safety, that we wouldn't do anything until we found a more than appropriate location to relocate the students and the staff. This building checks all the boxes. It's 3 acres. It's assessed at $3.7 million. It has its own gymnasium, which is unbelievable. We'll be able to retrofit a lot of it internally from the custodian, from the staff, the labor force on the school side. But I do humbly ask for your support on this so that we can acquire it. We'll do a taking. We'll record it at the Registry of Deeds. Again, Peter Mello, who you met here recently, Attorney Mello from Brockton, who represents the schools, and Attorney Bridges have been working with this as well. We've had a lot of meetings, a lot of walkthroughs, and this is definitely the right location.
Mr. Superintendent, do you want to comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to echo what the mayor said. It was important for the Key Center really holds students that have always been close to my heart because these are kids who need a second chance. These are kids who are in danger of dropping out. Some of them have dropped out, and we've managed to bring them back into one of our different pathways. So making sure that these students and the staff that work with them had a better location that they're in now. As you know, the Keith building, even though it's something that's a historic building, it's a very old building. It's former Brockton High School. But this property on Summer Street is such an upgrade. 34,000 square feet in the 3 acres of land is really huge. It allows us to really have a lot more green space, outside space for these students. The parking's much better. We'll be able to provide easier transportation. So again, when I came before this committee before about the moving of the Key School, and then when I think it was an online Zoom meeting we did last year, and a lot of people, when we talked about the public safety building, their main question was where the kids are going to go to school. And I said then, and I say it now, that we weren't going to move until there was a suitable upgraded location for these kids to come to school. Because again, these are a lot of our very needy kids that need us, and they need us to keep them in school, and having this new location is a real benefit.
Councilor Cardoza and then Councilor Thompson.
Hello.
Hi.
Mike Thomas, Superintendent Thomas, Mr. Thomas.
Mike's fine.
Any renovations to the May Institute? Do you anticipate that it's going to cost us a lot to renovate it?
No, not at all. We need to take one wall down to make the cafeteria area a little bit bigger. And we'll do some outside work. We'll work with Chartwells and do those outdoor cafe tables so students have an outdoor classroom and they can eat outdoors as well. And then a lot of it's cosmetic because it's in really good shape. So paint, just to make it our own, let the staff pick out their own paint colors. We have to go in and retrofit the Wi-Fi system so it's our Wi-Fi system. But other than that, very minimal work has to be done.
It's been over 3 years since I've been over there, so I wasn't sure if it needed some work. And then as far as the Keith, will that be the only school that's housed at the May Institute, or are there other programs going?
It would be the Keith, it would be the champion to 2 schools that are there now, actually 3 programs. It would be the Frederick Douglass Academy, the Champion High School, and then our Pathway Center, which is our dropout prevention center for students that they come in, they take the classes that they have to take, and some might only be down to an English and math class, and they only have to take those 2 classes, and then we're allowed to find them jobs, so they work, and then they come in and take those classes, and then they can get their diploma quicker. So that program will go over there as well. And also our dropout prevention center will be over there.
Good, good. So I'm glad you found a home for the Keith, and this is exciting, so
Yeah,
thank
exactly.
you all for your hard work.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councilor Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good evening, Mr. Thomas. One of my questions was just asked by Councilor Cardozo, exactly what programs are going to be transferring over to this facility. So it's all the ones currently being held at the Keith.
Yes.
And the dropout prevention. Is there any intent to bring, or what other uses do you believe this facility can hold there, or are we only looking at the ones that are currently being held at the current Keith building?
Right now, it'd be the current Keith Center students and programs. We really want to expand our dropout prevention program. We just added an extra counselor for dropout prevention. I was able to get a Brockton resident who worked in Fall River to come with us, and he's with us now. And I want to do a lot more work with getting our kids back that we lost. We lost kids from COVID that left and had to go to work for their families because they were struggling. And I have to get those kids back in a different program, because a lot of those kids need to continue to work for their families, but we need to get them their diploma. And a regular traditional school doesn't fit for them because some of them are 17, 18, 19. They're working during the day. So I need to find them different ways to get them their education and get their diploma while they can still work and support themselves and their families. So I really want to expand the Dropout Prevention Center, so that would get bigger, and we have room over there for that to grow.
That's great to hear. Just lastly, what's the turnaround time on this? When would we expect renovations to be complete, and when would the school open for those students?
So our goal, and again, thanks to the mayor and Troy and Aldo and Megan and Peter Mello, we're hoping that we could get in there, and I'll let Megan talk to you about the actual, the passing of the papers and the taking. But as far as we're hoping to do is start to get in there in pretty much early November at night to start doing our Wi-Fi and set all that up, and then get in there sometime in December to start the minor renovations, and then hopefully we would move everything, the furniture, everything that could be moved from the Keith over during the holiday vacation, and then the goal would to be start school there when we return to school on January 2nd.
And just, is this $3.9 million, is that also monies to cover renovation, moving costs, all of that, or?
No, I believe there's an extra, I want to say, Al, was it $500,000 for that? 250, that was in the bond. Yeah, there's 250,000 in the bond, and then we'll pick up the rest of it in our facilities budget.
Okay, so this 3.9 covers the cost of the building, some of the moving costs, some of the upgrade costs.
I think the 3.9 is the purchase price, correct?
It's just
3.9
purchase
is the
alone.
purchase price, and then I think in the bond for the public safety building is 250,000, and then we would cover the rest with our facilities budget.
Understood. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Thomas, for your time tonight.
Thank you.
My neighborhood.
Yeah. Councilor Rodriguez?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When I first saw Summer Street, and I was, thinking that it was my house that's worth $3 million, and I'm like, what the hell's going on? But,
You're leaving town?
I was getting ready to move. But, Mr. Superintendent, my question is, as you know, I live in that area.
Yeah.
So are we going to put some more effort in terms of busing some of these children? I know we own the bus, most of the buses now, because currently the school is located in the middle of the city. Now we're going to the east side of the city in the sense, so there's going to be a lot more need for transportation in the sense. I also had, this is going back to the existing school, where both parents and students often complain about the fact that they didn't have much in terms of school transportation that they could rely on. And that was the reason some kids were basically kind of saying, forget about this whole system, I'm dropping out, I might as well drop out. But if we could encourage you and the system now to do a lot more perhaps in transporting these kids and forego the distance that, I don't want to say normal kids, but the mainstream kids are going through, and kind of look at these students as, some of them are special students. that we could just turn the system into being a little more friendly in terms of transporting these young people, so that they're not walking through the neighborhoods as much as to go from one side of town to the other. So perhaps to kind of shorten that gap in terms of those that are allowed to walk versus taking transportation.
Absolutely,
Would
100% with you.
be
Now that
greatly
we,
appreciated for at least,
Yep.
because that's one of the complaints that I
hear you,
have
yep.
heard from the neighborhood, living down there, that you're gonna have all these kids walking through the neighborhoods, neighborhoods that they're not very familiar with. So if we can kind of minimize that by putting them on the buses and getting them home safely, I think would be something that the neighbors would, take
absolutely.
upon a lot easier. Secondly, I just wanted to bring up the issue of what's pleasant to the eyes in the sense. If we could make that school a little more appealing, because I've been to Champion several times, and often it reminds me of prison, to be honest with you. So if we can make it a little more appealing to the eyes, aesthetically prettier in the sense that perhaps it would encourage these young people who are having a tough time making it through the regular mainstream programs to be a little more forthcoming and participate. So as somebody that works in this city told me not too long ago that we're swimming in money, I would say that it would make sense for us to spend a little bit more to make it a little more appealing to the eyes and perhaps encouraging these students to stay within the program a little longer than they need to.
no,
So
absolutely.
just
That's the benefit of moving to this building. It's newer.
make it appealing.
Better, yep, and we got to paint, lighting, exterior, the outside space all has to
Some
be.
lounges,
Right.
some places to just to kick back,
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Solicitor Bridges, anything that you would like to add?
I thank you for taking this item in order and also for allowing it to be last. I don't have anything else to add unless there are additional questions. If you're not familiar with the property, I would just share that it is currently used as a neurological behavioral disorder center. And there is a public education component also. So it is a place that is familiar to the city. And it is a very unique opportunity in that the May Center as an organization is moving on to a new facility. So the private owner is desirous of selling it to the city, and through a very detailed process, we've arrived at this price. It is fair, it is in accordance with the law in terms of the eminent domain process, and the timing of it would allow the city to record its ownership sort of at the same time at the end of the year. The lease expires this year on December 31st. So that is how these things are kind of all lining up organically. And then, of course, any questions that you might have.
Motion to recommend favorably.
Second.
Thank you.
Okay, there's been a motion made and properly seconded to recommend favorably. All those in favor? All those opposed? It is a vote. Thank you very much. Next one up.
Ordered. Whereas pending before the Ordinance Committee of the City Council are proposed major zoning changes for certain parcels of land in the area of Beaumont Ave, Quincy Street, Christo's Way, and the property formerly occupied by or contiguous to Christo's Restaurant and Function Facility. And whereas, if approved, these zoning changes would have a profound effect on the inventory of commercial parcels of property in the city, as well as traffic, school populations, and other effects on the residents in this area. Ordered. The zoning changes filed during the meeting of September 27, 2021, and numbered 32 and 33 on the revised agenda shall be the subject of a public hearing at the East Middle School held by the Finance Committee of the City Council. Committee members wishing to hear public comment may attend. The City Council shall request and receive the most recent traffic count data from the Old Colony Planning Council for the intersections of Quincy and Center Street and Quincy and Crescent Street. The City Council shall request and receive information from the Brockton Public School as to the impact R3 multi-family zoning may have on school populations in the school buildings, which would accommodate additional students. The City Council shall request and receive copies of all documents from the Planning Department or any vendor which was compensated for studying the proposed zoning changes, where residents or businesses within a 1-mile area were solicited and returned positive or negative comments about zoning changes. The City Council shall request and receive from the Planning Department all copies of email, letters, notes, or other documents from any source sent to or received by that department regarding the proposed zoning changes. The City Council shall request and receive information from the Chief of the Fire Department as to the technical fire prevention requirements for R3 multifamily 3-story residential buildings. Invited Robert May, Director of Planning and Economic Development, Timothy Cruz, Clerk to City Council.
Councilors, as you know, Councilor Mendes, DeCastro, and I filed this. However, Councilor Thompson would like to speak first, so go ahead, Councilor Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the filing of this resolve. So, Mr. Chairman, the matter of the zoning change for Christos and the zoning amendment of our current C5 zone, it's going to be heard by our Ordinance Committee on October 26, and I'll speak more extensively on those specific two issues at that meeting. But tonight, just after reviewing this resolve, I was just hoping for a few clarifications on some of the item numbers. So we'll start with just number one. This resolve calls for a public hearing at the East Middle School to be held by the Finance Committee. It's my understanding that this zoning change is going to require a public meeting by a special session of the City Council. So I see as that Finance Committee meeting may seem duplicative of the required City Council meeting on the matter. So is that the intent to hold, for the Finance Committee to hold a separate public hearing outside of the City Council's public hearing?
I'll let Councilor Mendes speak for herself, but on my part, yes. I felt that this particular issue, and seeing the reaction to other zoning issues that had been passed down in the Thatcher Street area, that people might be more inclined to come to the East Middle School, might be more inclined to be heard and participate than coming to City Council chamber, where admittedly parking is limited, and it's sometimes for some people it's difficult to get here.
Now, with that meeting, because we, you know, from here to the end of the session, this legislative session, we only have a few Finance Committee meetings left. Would that be a special meeting of the Finance Committee that could be held at our discretion, or is this going to be one that's part of our regular course of business?
It would be a special one, which would be acceptable once the council passes this order. The presiding officer, neither the mayor or the presiding officer can call a special finance meeting. We can call a special city council meeting, but if this order is approved, that would give authorization to hold a FinCom meeting, and we would try to do it as soon as possible with proper notice to the public.
Understood. Secondly, the City Council shall, item number 2, regarding the OCPC traffic count data. Now, I know Ms. Waldron is here today, and I know the OCPC has probably conducted that specific traffic study. But I just wanted to make the chair aware that obviously until a specific use is determined, or a specific developers come in for a specific use, you know, a traffic study would not be, at this point, hold the most accurate depiction of what traffic would be in that area, without a specific use being determined to be in that area. And then, as you know, during any, once a use is determined, a developer comes in, he says, I want to build this, then part of that process requires a traffic study. And I think that one would be more accurate as to what residents would expect in this area once that use is built out.
Yeah, again, for my part, I was just curious, where are we with the baseline? Where are we now with traffic? And the other issue for me is that I think Planning and Zoning has already approved a dwelling or a multifamily dwelling on Crescent Street at the old Mather gas station property. So you're already having one project that's eventually going to be in the works. Now you could have others. So where are we starting from? And the accident data at Quincy and Center, Quincy and Crescent, the police department would have that. I'd be curious about that. I mean, is it an area that really needs to be addressed? Maybe it should go on the traffic improvement tip list?
I believe, potentially, I believe it is on the tip list, or I'm not, okay, so Ms. Waldron's shaking her head. But I do know that from speaking with State Representative Dubois, there is actually some bond money potentially set aside to address that, that intersection. I believe there was also some discussion about the Mather Garage on the left, if you're looking at the intersection from Quincy Street, and that strip mall, that small little strip mall on the right. There's some maybe modifications of that whole intersection. So that's something that has been spoken about, and so hopefully this, when the new development of what's going to go on Christo's, there can be some synergies between those two projects, what they're going to build, and also the modification of that intersection.
Yeah, I just assume that someone at that public hearing is probably going to say, what's the accident rate down there? What's the traffic? What traffic data do you have? So I was kind of hedging my bets as to how we can be more fully prepared to present a nice package to the public.
Yes, sir. Just item number 3 regarding the R3 zone. If you look at the zoning map that's proposed, there's just a small part that would be available for development as an R3 zone, a multifamily zone. Basically, the parking lot across from the nursing home and a little bit of the wooded area to the left of that would be available for R3 development. I don't expect there to be a lot of, too many students that would overflow, whether it be Downey, East Junior, Baker, Brockton High. So I just wanted this council to be aware of, on the map itself, there's just very little space available for an R3. Obviously, we'd love to hear from the Brockton Public Schools as to what impact, if any, this small R3 development would have on the school system. But just from my understanding of what our current school populations are, they'd be welcoming students to the school system and would not have an adverse effect on any of the schools in the area.
Counselor, I'm just hoping in the future that we always, when we have a potential zoning change that could reasonably, we assume it could affect the schools, we ought to involve them. We ought to reach out, and they may say, no comment needed, we can accommodate whatever the zoning change accepts. But I've always been troubled, and I've talked to the superintendent, I don't think he's still here, but I've always been troubled that we don't bring in the stakeholders that are going to possibly be affected by something we do. So that's the only reason that's there.
Understood. Moving on to number 4, it's talking about copies of documents from the planning department or any vendor which was compensated for studying the proposed zoning changes, or residents or businesses within a 1 mile area that were solicited or returned positive, negative comments. From my understanding, no vendor has been compensated for the studying of the proposed change. I think Mr. May could probably speak a little to that. And from my understanding, there has been no solicitation or comment period as of yet for residents or businesses in the one mile area. So that may be something that happens through our public meetings, but I don't believe any of that has been held as of yet.
I actually do think that there has been a vendor or vendor involved, which it appears is the underpinning for some of the zoning proposed changes. So if there is data which is driving this proposed zoning change, then I'd like to see it. I'd like to see the documentation, because Counselor, I received a report a long time ago, and I'm going to read something to you so that you'll know why I'm asking for this. After a brief presentation, this is relating to the Christo site and zoning. After a brief presentation, the floor was open for questions and comments. While there were 1 or 2 multi-family proponents, a majority of the participants expressed their displeasure with moderate-density apartment blocks and favored more single-family or senior housing when housing was the desired use. More importantly, the neighbors wanted to see some type of commercial development at the site that would generate a higher tax payment and create new jobs. Traffic from any redevelopment strategy was a universal concern, as was the desire for more accessible green space. And actually, you and I were at that meeting. That was September 15th, 2020. So we have recorded what that audience thought at the time, and now we seem to be going in a different direction. We're getting away from senior housing, we're getting away from single family, and we're going to what could be side-by-side three-deckers. And I have no objection to that. If the people on the east side want that, you know, we're here to try to work with them and make things as attractive as possible. I will tell you this, though, and it's one of the reasons why I put this together. If you assume for the minute that Stop and Shop on the west side was the Christo site, I can tell you I would never imagine putting R3 triple-deckers side by side up there. I think you would have Armageddon. You would have such a hue and cry about traffic and the effect in neighborhoods and everything else. So I want to make sure that we do right for your ward, because, you know, you represent them well, you care about them, and so do the councilors at large. Councilor Cardoza, Mendez, Rodriguez, and I do too. And if we're going to do that radical change to go to R3, multifamily three-deckers, I just want to make sure that everybody over there is comfortable.
I understand that, and again, I think at the Ordinance Committee, I think we'll be able to better show the map of what is allowed, what the R3. I think at this time you may have an improper understanding of how much R3 is actually allowed in this area. This is not where the over majority of this land is. We proposed a C5, a modernized C5 zone. So there is a small slice of R3 that's allowable, but I wouldn't categorize it as, side to side R3 in this whole development, a very, very small amount of R3. So I just wanted to make that clear. So yeah, you're right. You're right about the comments made, and you state that why haven't we looked at senior residential? Again, if you look at the proposed zone, senior residential with assisted living is included in the proposed modernized C5 zone. So we did listen to my constituents and added a component of senior residential in this zone. Just wondering on number 5, I just don't know what the intent of all emails, letters, notes, or documents from any source sent to or received by the department regarding the proposed zoning changes. So maybe if you could just explain the intent there.
I can. When, under Mayor Carpenter, the public safety complex was proposed, there was a request for, I think, 75 or 100, no, actually for $700,000, and it went to discussion, and some of us raised the issue, well, okay, where are we going to locate this, and to give us more details. And they weren't forthcoming, so I happened to post on social media. I was uncomfortable with approving that appropriation. Subsequently, Mr. May came back in, and I sat, I believe, where Councilor Rodriguez was, and at that point, he said, well, we are considering I think it was over by Brockton Iron and Steel on Court Street and some other location, and I said, well, why didn't you tell me that? And he said, you didn't ask me. And I learned a lesson then. If you don't ask, you may not get what you want to absorb for information. So by putting this down on paper and being crystal clear as to what I'm looking for, I don't think there's any ambiguity, and I've asked for it.
Okay, Mr. Chairman. And then number 6, again, the intent is just to have a better understanding of what the fire department's perspective is on the
Yeah, if you do
limited
R3, I'm
R3.
told you have to sprinkle them. And that's going to add quite a considerable amount of cost to any structure over there that's three-family, a three-decker. And I just want to get that into the record because adding that kind of a cost could skew what a developer may want to do over there, given that the enormous responsibility for a fire suppression system in a residential unit, a three-decker residential unit. Apparently, that's a new fire prevention regulation.
Yes, sir. And then just lastly, just wondering, is there a time frame on any of this? You're asking for documents, you're asking for submittals of traffic studies and something from the fire chief.
I mean, I think one of the reasons why I invited Clerk Cruz is once this passes council, he would send out the correspondence, and I would hope that we could get it in a fairly timely fashion so that we'll all have it as we go through the different, iterations of the ordinance and the readings, and we'd have that material in front of us to make an informed decision. And certainly, I'd like to have it before we hold a public hearing. I'd like the public to know as much as possible about this issue. So we would do it, I hope, fairly rapidly. You don't want to hold up the process.
Understood, Mr. Chair, and I, obviously I've only served on this council for a short period of time. I was just wondering, has this council ever in the past asked for, emails and all of those things from any source regarding zoning changes in the past? I'm just unaware.
Not that I'm aware, but I'm going to tell you, I learned a very valuable lesson when we rezoned the Our Lady of Sorrows convent area for the housing. And there were chunks of body parts taken out of us by the residents over there because the only public hearing that I know was held at the convent. And at the time, I said to Mr. May, I'm uncomfortable holding a public hearing at the place where the group stands to gain and also on religious property. There are some people that may not want to go on religious property for whatever reason. It should be held in a public building, a school or a city hall. So it hasn't been done in the past, but I did learn a very, very valuable lesson, and I just don't want to put myself in that position again and not do the due diligence on this issue.
So I would just,
I mean,
if we're looking to make precedent here, that's my concern. So from every zoning change here on out, this council is going to be requesting every email, every document, every side conversation ever had with the planning department on that specific zone change.
No, I don't see that necessary, but I will say to the counselor, and this is, again, just me, my understanding from talking with you is there have been meetings with Mr. May and you. I understand you mentioned the mayor was involved in a meeting. Councilors at large, we don't represent Ward 5, and I give great deference to all of the ward councilors. But we councilors at large are elected by the people in Ward 5 too. And we're elected by all of the residents across the entire city. And if you want support from the other councilors, particularly in zoning where a 2/3 vote is required, I want to get away from having all of the meetings, all of the information shared, all of the discussions, and then it's dropped on the council, okay, this is what we're proposing, this is what we're going to do. Because we're not at those meetings when there's a give and take. We're not privy to, for example, meetings with the consultant, Urban Land Institute. So we come at this, Councilor Cardoza, Rodriguez, Mendes, and I come at this with a lack or a loss of background. What also frustrates me, and I don't mean to monopolize this tonight, but it's important. When these meetings are held by a department head, take some notes. Have a staff member take some notes. Memorialize what you're talking about. Memorialize any specific facts and information, and then send it out to us. And this is one of the only places, I don't know if this is common in municipal government, this is one of the only places I know where substantive work goes on. People give their very best effort to address an issue, and we don't record it. And I don't mean record it video or tape it. I mean, there's no notes kept. I mean, I take notes up here as to what you folks are talking about. Now, maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm just anal retentive, but we don't do a good job of memorializing the work that's done and then having it available when that final discussion and decision has to be made. And that's just my frustration. Other people may feel differently, but that's why I included this.
Well, I just want to add my 2 cents on that, you know, there are a lot of conversations that take place you know, I just would not want this resolve to, in the future, limit frank, open, rowdy discussion on any issue with the understanding that every conversation, every email, every discussion is now going to be, you know, shared with the committee. You know, I think that potentially would damper open, free debate. You know, at this point, this matter is discussed and now brought to the legislative process for hearings, meetings, you know, and so during those discussions, you know, that are open in the public, we can have, you know, open, free, fair discussions to ask for potential, you know, work product where sometimes behind the door conversations are a little more frank. I don't want us to do anything that would potentially limit our ability to have those discussions because everything's going to be aired out, you know, to the Finance Committee once those discussions are complete.
No, look, I understand there is a need to have frank discussions. But you know what? We live in an era now where we're supposed to be, and I heard it tonight, transparent. Now, I don't mean we have to be naked and show everything, and every word has to be written down, and every sentence has to be recorded. But I would feel better knowing what goes on a major issue like this and not have it come in 6 weeks before an election, 12 weeks before the end of the legislative session. I'd want to know as much about this issue as possible, because people are going to ask us, and they have a right to ask us.
Of course, Mr. Chair, and I'm always available for you to reach out to me to ask any questions. You know, yeah, I'm available anytime, Mr. Chair, and I'm at your discretion to speak on any of these, how I came to any of my reasoning, and any documents I have, any you know, my understanding of the issues. You know, please feel free to use me anytime if you have any questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome. And finally, Councilor Thompson, what's important is that the people of Ward 5 feel that we have done a service for them. It's not pleasing me or pleasing anyone else. I just want them to know that we gave it a thorough study, that's all, based on whatever we end up doing. Councilors, I'm sorry for this colloquy back and forth, but I think it was important to have it aired. Councilor Mendez.
Yes, and I think this is very important because the number one issue that we hear from the resident as I'm out talking to people is that we move too quickly, and by the time they realize on what's going on, it's pretty much a done deal. That's how they feel, even though we tell them, oh, but we had a public hearing that was held at council chamber. By the time they find out about it, it's already been passed and they haven't had the opportunity to really speak out and let us know what they feel about it. So by holding an extra meeting at a school in their area where they're comfortable in coming and attending and having all of these documents in hand beforehand, that really allows us to be better. Give an opportunity. See, I don't speak loud enough and the thing goes on. Anyways, it gives us that opportunity to be better informed, because up to this day, when I'm door knocking, they still ask me about the housing on Tatchard Street. And my defense is I wasn't even a counselor when that happened, but my understanding is really not, it's a done deal now. but people do ask questions, they want to know, and we as council at large, a lot of times feel like we have to know about the entire city and what's going on. And if we are not given that information, it's a lot of things. So it's good that we have that on the record, be provided as much information as possible to allow us to really talk to residents when they call us and be better informed and hold these meetings and be able to ask questions and have the appropriate departments to come over and really let the residents know. And at the end, we can make a better informed decision. So the extra step is definitely necessary.
All right, thank you, Councilor. I think Councilor Rodriguez and then Councilor Cardozo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I actually agree with you when we are discussing this particular issue. I've often said it since I've been on this council that, and I brought that up last, I think, a couple finance committee meetings ago when we were discussing the fire contract, that I wasn't really speaking about them supporting me, but it was more into, if you're coming here asking me to vote on a particular matter, one way or the other, I should have a say on what goes on. Because if, I don't care who's doing the negotiations, but if you're gonna come to this body with whatever you negotiated, I believe it's only common sense that the body as a whole has an understanding what we're voting on. And I don't see it as hampering the negotiations one way or the other, because the negotiation, believe it or not, and I don't want to go after Council Thompson with this, is the negotiation is not between the Ward 5 city councilor, it's the negotiations between the 11 city councilors, every single one of them. Because a voice of one of the ward councilors, and we tend to do a lot of that in this body. For some odd reason, this goes back to the days when I first got here, because we're almost like the forgotten four, you know, not the Fab Four or the Fab whatever, but what the forgotten four.
You say fat four?
Yeah, I think that's what I meant. I think that's what I meant. But you know what? We get beat up probably a little bit more than the ward councilors, because we get it from all 7 wards, not just from one ward. So it's important for us, I believe, again, you might see it as us overreaching, but I think it's only fair if you're coming to me or coming to any of us asking for us to vote one way or the other, and a vote that actually influences the way life goes in the city. I don't think it's honestly overreaching in any way. As a matter of fact, that's how I think business should be done. You can go ahead and negotiate whatever you need to negotiate, but if you're going to come to me for me to say yay or nay, I should have the entire knowledge and take as much time as I need to take to understand what the vote is all about before we're allowed to vote. Because I think we spend way too much time just dealing with the ward councilors, but kind of forgetting about the at-large folks. But, you know, we're equal on this. I mean, when we're asked to vote, I don't hear anybody saying, well, that vote only counts for half a vote and this one only counts for 2/3 of a vote, so it's an equal vote. So I think any business that's coming into this community, we want to be as business friendly as we possibly can, but we also, since you're asking me for my vote, I think common sense says that I should have the same understanding that the ward councilor has. You know, the same, it's not a special negotiation going on with that council. There should be a special negotiation going on with all the councils, especially those that actually are representatives of that area as well. And I'm talking about the at-large folks, that we should be part of that discussion so that at least when you come to the body, you've got 5 votes, you know, because you got the 4 plus the ward councilor. So when it gets to us, you basically get, at least you know that all you got to do is work for a couple more votes. But common sense says that we need to be a little more included in this particular discussion. We have gone way too long without being excluded. Sometimes, I remember our current mayor and when Council Sullivan sat up here, he used to say that all the time. You know, we represent the entire city, and yet somehow I think we're the only ones that know that. And I think it's important for us just to be part of that discussion constantly from the beginning to the end. If one email goes to the ward council, it should go to at least the other 4 at-large folks so that they understand what's going on. And again, I intend to support this so we can move forward with this particular thing. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome, Counselor Cardoza.
Just a quick question. Will this delay the public hearing if we don't get all of these items in a timely? That's my only concern, if we don't get all of these.
Looking at this list, I don't see anyone that's not going to cooperate. I mean, maybe it's naive of me, but I just think that this can be done in a matter of a week.
And if we don't get all the emails or what have you, can we still proceed on? Or will any one of these bullet points delay?
Yeah, I don't see why not. I mean, eventually it'll come into us, and remember, there will be multiple readings of an ordinance change. So if something came in late and it changed your thinking, you'd still have a right to do something with the pending ordinance.
All right, thank you.
Counselor Thompson, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, we got two more prior to getting back to me, so I apologize, I didn't see your hands. Mr. Chair, I already, if the other councilors had a few questions.
Lally, I'm sorry, who was first?
they were
Counselor
first, and
Lally,
then-
and then,
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not entirely comfortable with some of the bullet points on this, and I'm also not entirely comfortable that this is put in as an order instead of a resolve. I see, a lot of these really do seem like, things that you would find in a resolve, requests from departments. The counselors at large, absolutely, I would agree, should be involved and informed and kept in the loop and everything like that. But when it comes to an issue especially like this, it does pay to have a point person. And the point person logically would be the counselor that has the most direct responsible representation for the area, and that would be the counselor charged with representing the individual ward. I think that, looping in the at-larges is a very wise decision. Involving them in meetings, CCing them on emails, as Councilor Rodriguez said, I think that's a very prudent, decision. I think it, should happen more often in whatever case. But I just would prefer that I think a lot of this be run by the ward counselor before it reaches this stage. I sort of had my eyebrow go up a little seeing that the ward counselor was not a sponsor on the order. I think that the idea of having a second public meeting or a public hearing, I wouldn't be against it, especially having something local in the area. But I would also think that this be something that the ward counselor knew about ahead of time and was involved in the assembly of. There's certain things, copies of, emails, notes, letters, things like that, that can be done at the, simple request of the president of the body or the chair of the body. I think that absolutely getting the traffic data and the accident reports is something that should be done as a just natural procedure. I think that should be done in most cases, and I do say that that's a very good thing to include. I just wanted to take a moment to express, my belief as a ward counselor that when there's a decision of this magnitude, the greatest effect is going to be at the most local level. And I do think that there is a place for the ward counselor at the forefront of this. And I wanted to express my concern about, some of the bullet points. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
you're welcome. Counselor Azak?
Councilor Monahan? Okay. Actually, whichever direction this goes, I would like one thing added to it, which I've noticed over the years that I've been a city council that sometimes we don't really take into consideration when we're rezoning, but I want to see the numbers of how much less tax revenue the city will be receiving, changing commercial properties to residential. It's very easily, there's a lot of applicants that ask these, that come before us, that whether it's before zoning or city council. But I really, I think we need to keep in mind that the city, in rezoning, sometimes we're losing money. So whether that comes from our assessor's office or if our city planner can help us with this, but I really would like to see the difference in revenue that would be coming into the city. Thank you.
Councilor Thompson, is that something you could research for us and through the assessors?
That's fine. I'll reach out to the assessor's office to see if we can provide that documentation. So just quickly, two things. Number one is I hear the rest of the city councilors, the at-large councilors about being in the loop. I just want to say that this has been something the city has been discussing for multiple years now. And if at all possible, if I could have Mr. May come forward and maybe discuss, there's some statements that people are out of the loop. We held a public meeting sponsored by the Metro South Chamber of Commerce and the UMass Donahue Institute. That was a public meeting where this matter was discussed. Just a few years back, we had another public meeting with the Urban Land Institute. That was something that we all listened to and discussed. I had a public meeting about this matter in September of 2020. That was another something that, that was available to the public and we could all discuss. So I just, over the past 4 years, the city has been working on this issue and trying to develop a plan. It's my understanding now that some plan has been developed. It's now time to go through the legislative process to seek input from this council, seek input from the community. That is what my understanding of what a legislative process is, that there's a lot of legwork, a lot of items, understandings and discussions and everything that's done behind the scenes to prepare what we believe is to be a final product that obviously would be potentially modified through the legislative process. So I feel like it's the time to finalize after, I don't know, this has been an empty lot for 8-10 years now. So I think are we rushing something through? I don't believe so. I think it's time to finalize what our plan is for this zone. And now it's time to go through the legislative process to come to a conclusion on this issue. But if Mr. May, if you have anything to add, we'd be happy to hear from you on this issue.
Councilor, I have no objection to Mr. May speaking as to whether this particular order should be recommended favorably or unfavorably, but the merits of the zoning change would be discussed by the Ordinance Committee and a public hearing and then by the council. So what I would not want to do is get into a discussion about this is what we want to do, this is why we want to do it. I'd like to stick to the agenda item. Either we favor this or we don't favor it.
No, I understand. I'm just responding to some of the comments made. And I know Mr. May knows what the parameters of this discussion is, and I just wondered if he had anything to add to it. And I welcome all the councilor at-larges to attend the ordinance meeting currently scheduled for October 26th at 6 p.m. 27th. Be happy to have you there. Thank you.
Mr. May, on the question of this particular order and its provisions, comments?
Sir, I do not have anything else to add to this discussion on Councilor Thompson's zoning ordinance proposal.
All right. Is there a motion on this item?
Motion to recommend favorably.
Second.
Motion made and properly seconded to recommend favorably. All those in favor? All those opposed? Councilor Monahan, I owe you an apology. I think you wanted to speak and I went to Councilor Thompson. Did I do that to you?
You would never do that to me. Let me just write this down. That's 5 times.
That's all right, we're not missing much.
I will make it up to you. The next one up, please.
Resolved to invite a representative of Brockton Community Access, BCA, to appear before the Finance Committee to discuss the television coverage of the September 14th preliminary election. Invited Carl Pride, Executive Director of BCA.
Counselor, Mr. Pride is unavailable tonight, and I would ask that you postpone this to November 15th.
Second.
All right, motion made and properly seconded to postpone to November 15th. All those in favor? All those opposed? It is a vote. Number 17.
To invite representatives of the Brockton Redevelopment Authority, the Old Colony Planning Council, and the City of Brockton Office of Planning and Economic Development to appear before the Finance Committee of the Brockton City Council. Further resolved to have these representatives discuss how the city is dealing with attracting new businesses, keeping existing businesses, and reaching out to prospective business owners, particularly in the minority community, to explain and promote all programs that are available to assist in the growth of their endeavors. Invited Robert May, Director of Planning and Economic Development, Robert Jenkins, Director of Brockton Redevelopment Authority, Mary Waldron, Executive Director, Old Colony Planning Council.
Mr. Mayor?
Even though I'm not invited, could I open it up? Do you mind?
Any objection? No? No objection? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I want to thank Council Monahan for filing this resolve.
And Councilor Rodriguez also.
Oh, he co-signed. Thank you,
so
Councilor.
bright.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I am joined, of course, by Robert Jenkins, Rob May, Mary Waldron, Emily Hall from the BRA, and Adelsa Mendez, Attorney Mendez as well. I think this is a conversation that is going to help all of us as elected officials. It's going to help the city as a whole. It's going to help current businesses. It's also going to foster additional new businesses to come here. And that's proven by the fact that we're working in collaboration. Secretary Mike Keneally from Housing and Economic was just here with Lieutenant Governor Polito last week as well. We are really trying to market Brockton. You were all given signs. I want to thank Davis and Perez and Sidney Merrill from my office. Those signs really are going to help Brocktonians and Brockton business. Business is open in Brockton. We didn't pause construction during COVID. We are working together to try to really show everybody outside of Brockton how wonderful Brockton is. But Brockton's a business, and we have to treat it as such, so we have to market it. The Brockton Partnership, led by Bob Rivers, CEO of Eastern Bank, and Jim Blank, CEO of Harbor One, have been awesome working with us. And I'm not going to steal the thunder from Adelsa, but she has been a wonderful, wonderful addition. A lot of you attended the different forums that we had. First one, Perfect Place, Westgate Mall, Luanda. You know, we need to continue to try to figure out how we can work in collaboration. One key component is to make sure the businesses are here. A great example is Black-owned Brockton, where we were able to foster a relationship at the Westgate Mall and then outside here at City Hall as well. So as mayor, you know, my role is to be the #1 cheerleader for the city of Brockton. And it's going to businesses, it's walking around, it's marketing Brockton. Myself and Troy recently had a billionaire, I've never met a billionaire until the other day, come to Brockton. He came from Tennessee. You know what the guy said to me? I can't believe you have a Chick-fil-A and a Starbucks at your mall. I mean, that's what his perception was. We wouldn't have that. So again, I'm really anxious to hear from all of our team right here. I also want to thank them. We did a collaboration with the BRA and OCPC a while ago for a business survey that was on the city website as well as their own respective. Got some really, really good feedback. But the Open for Business initiative is key. The app that you're going to be marketing proudly is a business directory, which is free. It's going to really market 2,000 of our businesses. And they can, if they're a restaurant, you can go up there and you can showcase your menu and your specials for the week and all that stuff. But, you know, it's a free promotional. It's another tool in the toolbox. To be able to download it from Android or from Apple is key. Multiple languages to reflect the diversity of Brockton. But again, I'm here to answer any questions, but I do know, because we spent today and 3 times last week, we spent a lot of team effort to showcase to each and every one of you. But I also want to thank the state delegation, the reps and the senator, and again, the Baker-Polito administration. The late Mayor Bill Carpenter, he formed a wonderful collaboration with Karen Polito. That's a fact. And we've been able to continue to keep going and going and going. And, you know, through the efforts of all of you, adopting the ordinance that we put on the books with COVID cane for outdoor dining, extending Prova. These are the little things that add up. But, you know, we have been able to use financial resources with our CDBG money, our home funds, and Robert Jenkins and his team will be able to talk about that. We gave out $500,000, $500,000. So can we do a better job? Absolutely. We can always do a better job, but we can only do a better job working together. And that's why I support what you did, Tom, and what you did, Moses. So thank you.
As our three guests come up, thank you very much for your patience waiting this evening. And Councilor Monahan?
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. He did call on me, right?
I did.
Okay. As Councilor Rodriguez and myself filed this basically because if we go back in the day, when we were trying to find out what was going on as far as who was bringing in new business, if somebody came to us, where did we send them to? We sent them to B21. Mary Waldron was basically the point in charge. We would go talk to her. She would send those people in the right direction. We've lost B21 right now. The other day, that's why brought us to do this. I said, who are we going to now? If somebody wants to bring in a new business, who are we going to help these people out? And I really wasn't sure. I actually went back to Mary and I said, hey, what are you thinking about this? And she said, well, she started rattling off a list. So that's why she basically told me, get in touch with the BRA. I didn't know that we had hired somebody who was actually working with attracting new businesses, how we retain them, and how helping out the minorities, which have a lot of, we've had problems before with they're really not understanding all of the rules and regulations. Are they having problems? They need help, and this is something we need to keep the businesses in the city. And so anyway, we put this little resolve together, and we're going to start off with, I guess, Mary, are we starting off with you?
Excuse me.
Is she here? Oh, sorry. Oh, she. Get that milk box out.
Good
Sorry.
evening, councilors, and Mr. Mayor, thank you for, I know, the collaboration, the discussion that we've been having. I guess I'm going to start with the role of Old Colony Planning Council. So if before COVID, we only had one person who had been with our organization for probably over 30 years. Since then, we have hired 2 new people. One person has been Joanne Zigman. She is the Director of Economic Development and Environmental Planning. In addition to that, we've hired Dottie Fuginetti, who is, for those of you who may know, she's select board from the town of Easton, but we've hired her as an economic recovery planner. That fund, it was over $400,000 that we received to hire someone to not just with Brockton, but for the whole region. But as many of you know, as Brockton goes, the region goes. So it had come where all these different grants and funding sources have been coming, and one of them happened to be from the Mass Office of Business Development. And that is where we had 2 weeks to turn this grant application around, and it was done. And with that, not only the city of Brockton, town of Avon, the town of Easton, and the town of Stoughton received funding to do the very similar kind of app. Fortunately, Brockton has that more many businesses, but that app really has the opportunity to really, in today's world with entrepreneurs, we have to talk differently to businesses. Some of them require the old, just pick up the phone, and others require really just give me a text because I'm running 2 businesses or I've got another job and I can't get to meetings, so I want to be able to communicate. So this app really is going to be something for those that have not uploaded yet. I highly recommend that you do that. But the role of Old Colony Planning Council, again, on the economic development side, really is, in this time of COVID, we all have had to rethink how we do business. And it's working with the Brockton Redevelopment Authority, working with the Chamber of Commerce's, working with the Downtown Brockton Association, the Campello, the Montello, Westgate Mall, working with all of the organizations. And it's been a pleasure for me, not only as a resident, but to be working with Adelsa and with the BRA and Emily and the mayor's office and working on, and the other gentleman behind me. But it really is something that's just, it's tireless because it's never ending. It just continues to evolve as it comes along the way. But the biggest part is the communication. So that's the role of Old Colony Planning Council, teeing it up, and we'll continue to look for ways for grant funding as well as other resources to keep business open. So that's next.
She had a question.
Can I have a question?
Counselor Cardozo, if Counselor.
Ms. Waldron.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hello, Counselor.
So
I'm sorry.
you spoke a little bit about the business associations that I feel we need to engage more in conversations. So the 3 business associations that you spoke of, do they have active members right now, and are they engaged? I have heard very little from them, and I think they're key to making sure we're disseminating information. They have diverse populations, members, and it's a great way to disseminate information in the community to various businesses. But they used to be much more active and engaged, and I think we're missing out on
So if I-
utilizing those associations.
So I can speak to you as the interim president of the Downtown Brockton Association. It's one of those where I don't regret it. So we own our building. The Old Colony Planning Council owns the building in the corner of Montello and School Street. And I've been out, and the mayor and others have heard the story, but I'm out there every day cleaning up, every day, picking up my own time before work starts. And at one point, I finally said in the middle, I was like, this is crazy, like, what else are we doing? And I know that there's some efforts that the mayor and the city have been working on in terms of business improvement districts, and that's a whole nother topic. But in terms of the Small Business Association, don't forget, many of them are also the small businesses. During COVID, they were just trying to survive and repivot themselves. So I know for the downtown, we held on August 17th. It was a public meeting. It was open. We had about 100 people throughout the day. We held it I held a forum in the morning, afternoon, and at nighttime, and just asked, what are the good things, the bad things, what things need to be changed? And the engagement was incredible. Because when I was coming in as an interim, it was, who am I to say what everybody else needs? So it really was, so you're hearing from businesses, but you're hearing from visitors, you're hearing from employees, right? The needs are so different. So the engagement piece is really important. I know that Campello, I believe, just held their first meeting. Yes, so I just know that they just held their first meeting. It was robust. And Montello and so I reached out to all the different small business associations to say, how can we all get together and support each other? So the only one I really have, from Scott Dwyer, he's told me about some of the businesses that he's been in touch with, but we need to do, again, doing a little bit more with those small business associations to be
Absolutely, because
engaged.
I think it's important to listen to their concerns and bring them to the table when we're talking about, and supporting small businesses in general is key. We have to support the businesses that are here before we talk about new businesses coming in. But thank you, I appreciate your comment. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome. Counselor Monahan, are you through?
Go ahead.
Oh, no, I don't have a question. I was just gonna.
Just want to smile? Okay. Go ahead, Mary.
Did you leave me?
No, you're done. You may come back.
To answer Councilor Monahan's question a little bit more directly, where do you go to find out about business development in the city of Brockton? I've got to say that there are more than one front door to this city. The mayor's office is constantly receiving comments, questions from both business constituents, developers looking in the area. I receive calls all the time. I know Robert Jenkins does. The Old Colony gets some inquiries, but not a whole heck of a lot. But they're a great data resource and partner with ours. But Metro South Chamber of Commerce is also a place where people tend to knock first. We all meet every 2 weeks to discuss the projects that we're working on, the deals that we're trying to put together, where we're having problems, finding financing or making those things work. And so we're trying to be very proactive to address concerns that the businesses have. Currently now, the existing businesses and the businesses that we're trying to attract to the city. I know at the very beginning of the pandemic, the mayor sent a letter to every single business in the city of Brockton, letting them know that he and the Chamber of Commerce were hosting what was then weekly meetings with the Small Business Administration and with OMBD. SBA and OMBD, Massachusetts Office of Business Development, to make sure that the local businesses knew about the federal programs that were coming down and how we could provide assistance to them. Robert will tell you about a program that he ran, and we learned a lot from that program's implementation, and part of that was bringing on Adelsa. So he's gonna tell you a little bit about that. But in addition to our team that is constantly here, there are 11 of you that get inquiries all the time from people. I know I've dealt with leads that Councilor Lally or Councilor Monahan, Councilor Asak, Councilor Cardoza, heck, all of you, I don't want to leave anybody out, but have all brought businesses to us to help them expand their business or find something that is going to help them grow and stay here in Brockton. We have done an extensive amount of planning and creating urban renewal districts so that we have the property available for businesses to grow here. You know, we've just finished up the Trout Brook study, which calls for a lot of commercial development. We're currently working on an area that we call Lovett Brook, which is the Good Samaritan area. We just had a public meeting on that. And there's a life science component that we're trying to attract to that area. And these are jobs of the future and for the future, high wage jobs that Brocktonians will be available for. So I guess it's the partnership that we have here that is very important, not just between our organizations, but between us and City Council, between us and the business community. We talk about the Brockton Partnership. It's very important that these large corporations are interested in the future of Brockton. They're able to do things that we might not be able to do, but without their support, we couldn't do the things that we need to do.
Very good, thank you. And don't go anywhere yet.
I'm not going anywhere.
Get up right
Just
up there.
stepping back.
So, now when you all meet, who is meeting with you guys? Weekly, is it you tell me you guys are meeting?
Bi-weekly.
Bi-weekly, okay. And is the planning board, the ZBA, licensing, our boards that are involved in economic development, are they being brought up to speed on what the city wants to be business friendly, to help out these businesses get in here and, not be deterred?
I'm going to defer this to the mayor because we got big stuff coming up.
Yeah, thank you, Councilor. So I meet weekly with Rob May. I meet weekly with Robert Jenkins in his capacity. I have a department head meeting. Council Azak used to join us when she was president. Councilor Farwell has as well. Jim Plouffe in his capacity, he chairs the ZBA as the clerk. Ken Gallagher is the actual official chair. So he understands. I mean, my whole mantra has been we need to be much more business friendly. We need to be much more customer friendly. The day I took office, all you were there, January 6th, that was one of my inaugural speech. Now, COVID changed a lot, right? But it's also, it's changed us forever, right? Mentally, financially, emotionally. So with that being said, we need to continue to figure out how we best produce what we need for the businesses that are here currently, right? What are the tools in the toolbox? We've used TIFs and ties. WB Mason's a good example, right?
Right.
But also to attract new businesses here. And I really think the best way is to tell our own story. And that's what everybody here has been doing. Chris Cooney does an SBA call every other week now. Margaret LaForest from the state is on there. Susan Whitaker as well. So we need to continue to do that. Now, the TDI fellow, George Durant, has left us. But, at the end of the day, we, Brocktonians, elected officials, residents, taxpayers, need to figure out what is the best practice. What is something that might be not there right now? One thing that I was able to do is I have students right now from Harvard Kennedy School of Government. They did a Safe Streets analysis. It was MIT and Kennedy. And then I was able to pitch to them, and again, Counselor, like, listen, it's great to have housing, 750 units in the queue. That's great. But what are the amenities that we have? What are the businesses that are here? And what's lacking? Or what is here and what needs enhancement? So, the open communication and to be able to listen and learn to be effective leaders. And that's what these individuals have been doing.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
I think Councilor Tardoso, would you have something?
I have a question for Mr. May.
Yes, ma'am.
And Mr. May. So in your department, you don't have a junior planner, do you?
Not at the moment.
Okay, is that something that we need to look
We
at?
have advertised, and we think we have a candidate that we will be bringing on. As part of that position, provide staff reports to the Zoning Board of Appeals and to the Planning Board, explaining the cases that are in front of them and making recommendations on how it fits into either the city's plans or where tweaks could be made in the developer's request. We also have a new position that council approved in this year's budget, and that's for a senior economic development planner. And I hope that person is going to be starting November 1st.
Good.
So I've got to go
Awesome,
out and buy
because
a desk now.
you definitely need the support there. And then the other issue is, as far as marketing Brockton, we know we have a lot of issues that we need to look at before we can, market Brockton properly around code enforcement, cleaning up the city, tackling crime. Our commercial tax rate is high. There are so many factors that could, decide where we're going in the future. What are some of the plans around that? I know that may be for the mayor, but as far as someone who's going to go market Brockton, is that a position that we create? What are your thoughts on that?
That is a very good question. As a matter of fact, we had a meeting this afternoon at lunch. It was BYO. Miss cookies at meetings. But Bob Rivers from Eastern Bank and the Brockton Partnership had a meeting this afternoon to talk about marketing Brockton. They've brought in a firm out of Boston to help craft a message, asked a lot of questions, but the general theme that came out of this was things are better in Brockton. Better than what they used to be, better than what people perceive they are. Certainly the enterprise is not our friend, but we need to overcome that image. And just having people come into the city and say, wow, I haven't been here in 10 years. Things have changed so much. And we might not see that, but if you have been away, things have changed a lot. And it always is getting better every day. And that's through work that, Robert and the mayor and the chamber and council are doing to keep Brockton moving forward.
Okay, and we spoke a little bit about the small businesses making sure that they have access to funding. On the Health Equity Task Force that I sat on, one of the key things that we did was we advocated for Ms. Adelsa's position, and that position was created because we felt that we needed a tech person to help a lot of the minority businesses so that they could access these funds. I feel her position should be more footwork. I understand we have these apps and all these great things, but in this community, unfortunately, that does not work. There needs to be someone that goes out to the businesses, sits down with them. There's a lot of hand holding that you have to do in these minority businesses, and that requires a person that's physically in these restaurants, barber shops, all over the city, making sure that they have the support that they need. I think we need to expand on that program, on Adelsa's position, add another person, because she can't possibly handle the work that needs to be done to make sure that our small businesses are supported.
As brilliant as she is.
Yes, and she's wonderful, and I love her, but
we need more Adelsas.
Yes.
And that's something that I think we can segue over to BRA to discuss, but that is certainly something that we want to have.
Sure.
Thank you.
Good evening, councilors. I guess I'm batting cleanup. Let's go Red Sox. I was going to do a historical perspective on this, but I think most of you know how we got here. I know, Tina, you were very much involved. Councilor Rodriguez, we spoke. Councilor Thompson, Jack, and even Councilor Monahan. So the mayor actually put $500,000 plus into a business assistance fund for COVID, small businesses, $10,000. They called it a grant. I wanted to call it assistance. The one thing that showed us and demonstrated to us is how exasperated the challenge is and the problems. Council, you raise a good point. It's more guidance. They needed more guidance than they needed cash.
Right.
And we could have gave out all that money. We expected to, but we didn't give out, I think we gave out a little less than half of that money. In over a 7-month period. We started it in June. It went to January just so we can fit more people in, but they needed more guidance. And that's when we hired Adelsa. And if you guys haven't met Adelsa, you're missing it. Adelsa, if you could just raise your hand, stand up. You're right. We need more Adelsas. We do. We really do. Working a lot, and it's just not minority business. And everybody should know this, and if not, I'm going to tell you. Brockton is the largest Alana, African, Latino, Asian, Indian, American community in New England. We are the largest. You look around at our small businesses. America was built on small businesses. Brockton was built on small businesses. People have passion and they have a dream, and if we can't help them get to the guidance, Mary rattled off a lot of these programs. I know Rob did, the mayor did as well. Here's where we're at. Adelsa's only been here less than 6 months. She's coming up with a plan on how we're going to assist small businesses, regardless of your ethnicity. How do you assist them? Because you'd be surprised how many Caucasian businesses lack the guidance and the understanding, basic filling out applications. You have to know how to fill out an application in today's date, doing everything online. COVID changed everybody's way of doing business, okay? And more people, and our key is keeping those businesses that are here, that have survived COVID. How do we keep them here and how do we keep them striving and showing them the guidance and the resources that are available? The state of Massachusetts has more than 20 organizations, assistances. They call them grant programs because I've seen them out there. Some of them are grants for businesses, and my wife runs a small business. I don't believe in grants. If you're in business, you should have a format on how you're making business and how you're making money. That's why you're in business. Hopefully with Adelsa and more Adelsas, you're right, she's not gonna get to everybody. But if you wanna know the doors to step in on how to get businesses in Brockton, there were several doors. Most of them starts with the mayor's office, and he sends them to the BRA, or they come in through Rob's office, Old Colony. We get calls from Mass Office of Business Development about businesses who want to come in Brockton, and they're looking for real estate. I'm not a real estate agent. The BRA is not a real estate agent. We can tell you who to go to. We'll give you some names of real estate, but this is what people are looking for, and they're looking for guidance. So this is part of our problem, and how do we get these folks to guidance? A couple of things I just wanted to go through, and we did, and I took some notes, Mayor, Council President, about summarizing everything we talk about so that it's documented. What I'd like to do, and I think all three, and we talked about it today with the mayor, is giving the council a summary of what we discussed here. It's a lot of information. It's a lot of information for your constituents. It's going to be a lot of information for you. But if you know where to send them, whether it's to the mayor's office, the BRA, you'll have something to give them or talk about with them or your staff or your constituents. Word of mouth is still the best way to go for businesses and for people. I know everybody likes to look at their iPhone or their watch or their iWatch and pull up information. The app is wonderful, but I feel talking directly with people, sitting down face to face and letting them know that somebody cares about them is very important. The other thing we learned from this, Adelsa has ran 2 business conversations. The mayor was there at each one of them. The one thing that people said, it's good to know that we're not alone. It's good to know that the city is also thinking about us. We're not an affluent city. We didn't get as much money as a lot of the other gateway cities, but we think we did the right thing, okay? Coming down and with the rest of that, and this was, CARES Act money. With the rest of this CARES Act money, not just funding Adelsa's position, but we're also looking to come out sometime in February or March with another program, hopefully guiding enough people to understand what an application looks like, what a forecast looks like, what a business plan looks like. These are the resources that are out there, and all you really do have to step into the door. I'll give you a list of just some of them. One of the things I know that was asked in the resolve is how are we attracting new businesses? Well, the first thing is like they said, the app. The one thing I say is also the word of mouth, working with mass development because they do talk, and they give the city a lot of money, as you'll find out come the 1st of November. They've invested a lot of money in Brockton and just not downtown. Social media, Instagram. I'm not a high-tech person, but my staff is. Initially, pre-COVID, we had maybe 50 followers on our Facebook. We have over 5,000 just on Facebook, following just the BRA's app, which I'm surprised to hear. How are we keeping existing businesses? We engage them where they're at. You make an excellent point. We go out and we participate. Black-owned Brockton. They held a market here 2 months ago, right here in the plaza. We participated with them. Just last Friday, we held the information for Hispanic Heritage Week or month. We were here with them. We actually got the AG's office to come down, the district attorneys, not the AG's. Plymouth County District Attorney's Office came to our office. Can we set up and provide information? We're not the feds. We don't want people to be afraid, but here's the information that people need to have. And we have a large immigrant population, large undocumented population of business owners, okay? Another thing that we're doing, and here's the other thing. We did a survey sponsored with Old Colony Planning. Was open for what, 6 months? Talking about what businesses need. Survey was completed. For me, if you have a survey that's open for 60 days, you shut it down. You have all in, but they didn't have enough respondents. So we went out and we Adelsa targeted people. Here's the survey, could you please fill it out? It's on your phone, please can you fill it out? I forget the number we had, but we had over 138 respondents, okay? So this is the work that we are doing. The good thing here that I love about the city is that everybody's working together. We need to include you because word of mouth is really, for me, that's how people get their information. I know everybody loves the tech, loves the phone, but it's really word of mouth. Your constituents, when they come to you and ask you, I need this, I need A, B, and C. Okay, you should go talk to the BRA, or you should talk to Adelsa. That's all I'm gonna do. I'm gonna send them to Adelsa. She's gonna say, do you have a business plan? What do you need? First question, what is it you need, okay? A lot of times it's just not cash. I can go through a list from A to Z of what we found out. But the key here is that we have a program. I would recommend us just giving you a summary sheet. It's probably not a sheet, a couple of sheets of paper that identifies what we're doing so that you can communicate it to your constituents. We have it, and that also something that when people ask you the question, you don't want to say, let me find out. You can say, contact the BRA or here. They're talking about mass development giving money or MOBD or mass growth capital. Here's who you should call. Call them directly. We have contacts now. This is the other good thing. We have a great relationship with all of these organizations because they want to know how can we, people are calling, how do we get into business in Brockton? If we wanted to move, what's the opportunities in Brockton? Granted, the mayor always said, if you wanted to invest in something, you should be investing in the city of Brockton. Well, that's what people are doing. At this point, I will take any questions.
So, okay, sorry.
Councilor Monahan?
All right. Just from what's been said so far, I'm glad you're all working together, you're meeting together. We as a council need the information, like I said. a month or so ago, I'm like, who do I go to? That information has to get to the council. We can't help unless we know. So I think everybody on here wants this information. I think the businesses need to know the information. And like Council Cardoso says, we have to get out there, boots to the ground, and get out to these businesses. And like, hopefully, you're doing good. One, hopefully you can increase the staff and really get moving here. And so that's what we need. That's what the city needs. I mean, here's what it was before. If you're thinking about it, I don't know where it is. We need that door open so everybody knows what's going on. And it seems to me, like you're going in the right direction, but we need to know that, and I didn't know that. I don't think too many councils on here knew what was going on behind the scenes. So I'm glad that's going forward. I'm glad the mayor's, obviously, it sounds like you're doing a lot of work with all these different departments. And like I said before, all our boards, our zoning, planning, all these committees that developers and whoever have to go to bring their businesses, they need to be business friendly. They can't have people on them that are thinking one way or another way. They're going to be on board with the city and the mayor and the council. We can't have people turn different businesses on conservation or this committee. So we need everybody working together to move this forward.
Agreed, Councilor.
And like I said, we need numbers. Who do you call if people come to us? And we as a city have to go out there and start advertising. Enterprise, forget it. No radio station. You're stuck with what? Internet? Which, I mean, all this technology today, and we're back in the dark ages as far as communications, as far as I'm concerned. But anyway, that's my little spiel. But anybody else, go ahead.
Councilor Ianieri hasn't spoken yet.
No, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Monahan. Thank you, Councilor Rodriguez, for bringing this before us this evening. And Councilor Monahan just reached something that I was just thinking of, and I think he and I, being here for the length of time we've been here, I think one of the things we always heard from outside source was, unless your three major sources are friendly to me, I don't want to do business in Brockton. Am I right, Councilor? You know that. Planning, conservation, and zoning. And that's one thing that people have to be educated on, and when they are coming here to do business, that they have to be, told how the operation works when they get to those departments. I mean, it's all well and good with applications, all that, but they have to be, they have to be seated and explain to them just what they're going to have to go through when they go to those boards, because they can sometimes be difficult. They don't sometimes come ready, you know what I'm saying? They don't come with an attorney. They figure they can be their own attorney. This happens with some small businesses. I've been to, I don't know how many zoning meetings in the 18 years, planning, conservation, and seen something that should have taken place, should have been okay, but wasn't okay in the eyes of those board members. And then they're starting all over again, and what happens? They leave. They say, I don't want to stay here. And I think that's one major important thing that has to be taken care of. As far as, knowing your business, I have to say, I go back a few years, if I didn't have somebody like Mary Walgren, who ran the economic development many years ago when I first came on in 2005, 4, 6, whatever, if I didn't have her, then I wouldn't have what's up on West Chestnut Street. And I know some people don't like to hear that, but that's true. If we didn't have her, who started with the units administration and then moved forward and worked with then 21st Century Corp, which became B21, she worked with the ward councilor, which was I. She worked with all ward councilors, but we didn't leave the council at larges out. She went and contacted the city councils at large and indicated this is a business that could come into a certain area, and won't you be helping and support the ward council, which is what you should be doing anyways. But the ward council I knew every step of the way, every time a business was coming into that location, those locations up there, which was just a plus. It was just the biggest plus for us in the city. And I think you still need to, in different times of today, as she mentioned, it is different today, even with small businesses coming into the city. Some of the organizations that have been mentioned that we still have downtown, business people and the Campello business and all that, but you have it's a different group of people. You don't have the 25, 30, or 40. Now you're down to like 10 or 15 people that are meeting, and they're just looking like, well, we hear the same thing over and over, and what are we doing? So But I think you're on the right stretch in what you're doing. Everybody involved, I think it's a great idea. Should have been done some time ago. I think that it's something that you have to keep doing in the next few years. I won't be sitting here, I'll be watching, but I have to say that you have to, from the mayor's office right down, you have to keep everything moving. And if you don't keep the car going, then you know what ends up happening. It's just not gonna run right, and you have to keep doing that, and everyone needs to work together. Totally 11 members of the city council with everybody else, because it's most important. We still have a great city, and there is still a lot of potential, and there's potential up on West Chestnut Street too, in some areas up there that still need to be developed, and they will be at some point. But I think you got a good show going on. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councilor Rodriguez, have you spoken yet on this? All right, then you and then Councilor Cardoza.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I want to begin by just congratulating the team on coming up with this app. It's a great start. You know, when you've got zero to start and you've got something like this, which is very easy to operate, I think it's a great start. The only issue that it falls on every single one of us is to spread the word and share with the individuals. There's not a single business owner that I know of in the city of Brockton that doesn't have one of these. Seriously. I think my grandson, who's 5, has one of these. You know, so I think the issue is for us to let them know that this exists and how do they go about putting their stuff in it and to make it work. Because this council has had a reputation in the past of being obstructionists, you know, people who are anti-business. And I've been here for 7.5 years within a couple exceptions of where the community might not want a specific business. This council has never voted against a TIF, or DIF, whatever you want to call it. We haven't voted against, you know, none of those things.
Right.
You know? So to have a label of being obstructionist, it's almost an unfair label because we're not anti-business. Often what happens is that we are, basically we struggle with knowledge. We struggle with knowing what's going on. And when things are basically given to us, they're given to us in a pile. Usually a week or so, a few days before the meeting, when we don't have time to basically do anything in terms of consulting anything. So that it comes here where you've got 11 members of this jury to basically dictate or decide what goes on in the fate of a business. And it's unfair to the business, it's unfair to us as well. Because we were talking a little earlier about being kept out of the loop. You know, a lot of us are kept out of the loop. You know, we're not so privileged to be part of that inner circle. We have too much. We're not, you know, privileged enough to be part of that inner circle. Sometimes we're kept out of the loop. And then sometimes you come up here asking questions that had actually been kind of taken care of in the meetings that others were in. So it makes it very unfair to us where we're labeled as anti-this when in fact,
You just don't have the information.
we just don't have the information. So that's what I leave, and before I leave, I'm gonna ask if, Mary, could you guys share the results of that survey with us? The result of that business survey? Because it'd be interesting to know what the community actually thought of that, you know, survey that you got,
So
because
it's
I know I
only
filled
fair
one out.
for me to not just stand here by myself, but it really is a partnership with Adelsa. So those results are not yet. One of my staff is putting together.
Well, when it comes, would you share
An
with them?
executive summary will be provided, making it really public. And I think this is where Adelsa comes in, where how many times, I mean, in terms of the number of businesses that she meets with, and this is, I mean, she's hearing it anecdotally, but this is now a structured result. So those will be, we haven't decided when, but it's going to be soon. We just had closed it. So do you want to speak?
It's important because basically, in order to serve, we need to know the needs. And I believe that's part of the reason I'm here, connecting directly with business, understand more, and doing the right approach, when I walk in the door, a lot of business feel connected with me somehow because I speak the language. I speak Portuguese, Cape Creole, Spanish, and I have a good ears for French. My husband is a French speaker. My kid speaks French fluently, so I just feel that the approach really helped, and we've been doing this, and it feels that the whole BRA team are moving in the same direction, so we're doing, and we have an amazing team. I feel that BRA now has a perfect team. Obviously, we're open to have more people. I would benefit of having more people working with me. The business are feeling that we're thinking about them, and by putting together events and have them involved in having a survey, that means like we really want to hear from you. It's really important. I feel very happy and motivated to be part of this community in assisting business. And I want to connect with all of you here. I had opportunity already to connect with, believe most of you, but I'm open to really see how we can support one another. And the connecting piece is actually one of the most important part of what I do here, connect business with the resources and connect business with the people that understand the need and can help them. Thank you.
Yeah, and just to conclude, because one of the perceptions that exist in this city is don't go to the council because they don't support anything. And that's I'm serious. I hear that all the time.
Have to change it.
And it's totally false. It's not true. And like I said, I've never been a part of anything that voted against a business a support to a business. So when you hear that kind of comment in the sense, again, it kind of hurts in a way because that's not necessarily true, but at the same time, it's because we're kept out of the loop in terms of not being seen as a partner in this push to help this a better city every day. So that's why I leave it out here open. Who knows? I think the only person that's safe on this council is Council Thompson. The rest of us are all up for re-election. So come January, 10 of us might not even be here. So anyways, but I just wanted to make sure that I share that with you, that this body should be your partner in moving forward and promoting the city, and also at the same time to help bring whatever good news we can to the residents and the taxpayers of this community. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome, Councilor Cardozo.
So Councilor Ianieri talked about the different planning, zoning, conservations, so he took away a little bit of what I was going to discuss. But on top of that, I think we need to do our due diligence also to reach out to you folks to get the information. Like when Adelcia came on, the first thing I said to her is, Adelcia, I'm happy to walk with you to the different businesses because I visit them frequently, and I've seen the cards that you folks sent for the events laying on their tables. They don't read it, or it's in the recycle bin or what have you. And I said the better approach in this community is you have to have conversations with these businesses. You have to be physically present. And a lot of the ethnic communities appreciate that. They want to hear from their leaders and see their leaders. They don't want to receive a letter or an email or look at an app. They may have a phone, but they're not doing it. We have to be realistic. They want to see someone. And it's hard. We do it during campaign season. We reach out to different leaders. We reach out to churches and different leaders in the Cape Verdean Haitian community when we're campaigning, right? So it's the same thing we have to do all year round. We have to make that effort to reach out. Councilor Thompson is super involved with businesses, right? That's what he's interested in. That's what he does. He does it all day long. I am helping out with the minority businesses, making sure I'm advocating for them every day. So I think we need to take some responsibility too to be more involved with the businesses in this city. But I commend everything that you're doing, and I want you to know I've always been here throughout the pandemic. I did many forums with Claire Cronin, Small Business Strong. We did all of this work to try to make sure we were getting the resources and information to our businesses, but at the end of the day, we know that the approach has to be a one-on-one, person-to-person interaction. So I hope that we continue to move towards that and adding more staff to be able to do that. But thank you very much. Thank you.
Councilor Razak.
Thank you. So I want to congratulate you guys because I heard about this app a few months back. when I was at the Perfect Place, when Dottie mentioned it, so I am very happy. I downloaded it right away as soon as Davison told me about it. It was downloaded, and it is a tool, so I hope residents at home, you know, download it, business owners, download it on their smartphones. I think they can access it through the city website. It kind of links it together so people can see it at home. I've personally witnessed firsthand, and I thank Councilors Monahan and Rodriguez for bringing finally it before us, because I wanted to do that months ago. It just didn't happen. But so welcome to Council Chambers. Welcome, welcome to the city of Brockton. And I've seen the difference that you've done. You've collaborated. You've brought many agencies together. It's really nice to be at these events and see the collaboration and communication. And I've heard the buzz in the community and people there. Everybody seems to really be learning things, noticing a big difference in what you're doing, which is really important. And that's what's important to me as a city councilor. So I appreciate what you're doing. I know my job as a city councilor, when businesses do contact me, I'm right there for them, and that's what I think my, colleagues are trying to express. We have to do our job, and I know you're doing yours, so you're appreciated in the community. So thank you, and thank you for sharing. I know you're very good about getting information out there. Every time I'm at one of your events, you have plenty of flyers, plenty of information, so that's really important. So we'll keep the lines of communication open, and we'll share your info, and hopefully the city of Brockton will just keep on moving forward with amazing tools like this app, which is really great. Thank you.
Councilors, obviously you could move to favorably recommend, or you have the option
Motion to recommend favorably.
Second.
Okay, I was going to say, or you have the option of postponing this to another future meeting for more information to come in, including the statistics and any information from mass development. So
I think we can just put another resolve in when that time
Yes,
comes.
I think that's
all right,
best.
then there's been a motion made to favorably recommend. Mr. Mayor, do you have a final thought?
Chairman, I just wanted to follow up. I had a conversation with Councilor Monahan this morning, and he wasn't that familiar with my wonderful new chief of staff, Sydney Merrill. I know most of you know Sydney, but she has an open door policy. She goes to everything. Tonight, when Councilor and most of you were with me at the War Memorial, she was at the library, an event by the NAACP. So, Tom, this is Sydney. Sydney, this is Tom. But by all means, please utilize her and Davison and anybody in my office. Brady Winson, again, is the public policy director. So we're all in this together, but I do want to applaud both of you, Moses and Tom, for this wonderful resolve tonight. Thank you all.
All right, on the motion to recommend favorably, all in favor? All opposed? It is a vote. Anything else, Madam Clerk? Nothing? Okay. Any special recognition? Councilor Ianieri, that's right.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to remind the members of the Ordinance Committee, we have a meeting on Wednesday evening, October 27th, 6:30 p.m. right here in the City Council chambers. Again, it's next Wednesday, October 27th at 6:30 p.m. right here in the council chambers. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right. If there is no, Councilor Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For all my constituents in Ward 5 and all the residents of Brockton at large, I'm happy to announce that I will be holding a Ward 5 meeting. It will be a podcast to take place on October 28th at 6:00 p.m. There I'll discuss different topics of interest in the ward, and we'll take questions on the chat function on multiple platforms. This podcast will be broadcast by the Brockton Cable Access on channels 12 and 1084. It'll also be accessible via YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. These links I will post on my page as we go live. I believe this is the most convenient and efficient way of getting information to the public. I hope you find this podcast informative, and please send me your feedback. I would also accept some questions via email. So if anybody wants to send questions to me to be answered on the podcast, you can send those to jthompson@cobma. I'm looking forward to speaking to you all on that date, and thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Counselor, she's not here, she's sick, so I'm going to mention the Ward 4 meeting at the Davis School. I'll be attending. It's Wednesday, this Wednesday, October 20th at 6:30 p.m. Again, Ward 4 meeting by Councilor Nicastro. She has several people coming in, I believe, including the mayor and the police chief. 6:30 p.m., Wednesday, October 20th. If there is no further business, meeting is adjourned.